What's going on, everybody? Cali Death Podcast back once again, episode 210. I am your host, Anthony Trapani. It's been a while. It feels like in a long time since the last time we did an episode. Splitting these things up to 2 weeks apart, it makes it feel like an eternity, but I'm glad to be back.
All right.
As always, got a couple resident homies with me. I got Casey Howard and Joel Horner with me. What up, dudes?
Hi.
Hello.
That was a real genuine what up, because we really haven't spoken to each other much, dude.
I know, right?
Like, Joel and I said,
Merry Christmas, dude. Merry Christmas.
how are all your holidays? And she's like, literally, no. But I mean, it was that naturally happens. You like do something week by week by week, and then we take a break. It's like, all right, let's just distance ourselves from it a little bit, and then you realize, oh dude, all I do is just send me and Joel just communicate through videos on Instagram. We don't even speak to each other. Like, every now and then it's like Joel's like, all right, I had to post that one or something. That's it.
Here's an AI raccoon playing the piano. Merry Christmas.
Yeah. That's a new form of communication in 2025. Just send someone a video and be like, I agree with that, or I laugh at that video, and that's funny. Haha. It's like, I hope you're doing well too. I'm doing well as well. It's like
You feel so loved when you get those.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like we all knew we'd be getting together and hanging out this Thursday, and here we are now, dude. And this is our time. And what's cool about this episode for me is we were talking about it pre-pod that this episode's kind of born out of Thomas's episode, because naturally Casey and Thomas had realized that they had Peter Pupping in common as a teacher, and that came up in conversation just naturally, like organically, and it was just super cool to that link to happen. So here we are today to bring Peter Pupping in to indulge us with his
welcome Peter,
musical and other
thank you
aspects of his career.
Great,
dude.
Great
Peter,
to be here. I'm really curious about our topics, and I'm get to know you guys a little bit on the death metal side of things. And
totally, dude, that's awesome. And I just want to thank you for giving us your time, and I also enjoy these types of episodes because it's just us showing the fact that we aren't just death metal guys. We have never been just death metal guys. We may express our art in that realm the most as artists, but we still indulge in other facets of art and music and so we can also appreciate a Peter Pupping as well as a Trey Azagthoth of Morbid Angel. It's the same thing.
So for context for Peter, I mean, it's like with Al Di Meola, for example, like it's like all of us, that's like our favorite guitarist, right? So it doesn't matter if you're metal or other styles, but that's going to be your influence, like that same.
And I have to thank Casey for giving me Al Di Meola, or just the Thunderdome in general, seeing that record on the wall. And that's the thing, it's these these sponge minds that are just ready to absorb all fascinating art.
You guys heard about this Italian kid that plays? He's about 27. His name is Matteo Mancuso. Absolutely phenom. He's like all the rage and all the discussions online, and he's using classical right hand technique on electric guitar.
That guy. Yeah.
Wow.
I follow him. Yeah, I follow him. Yeah, he's sick, dude.
He's on Rick Beato's channel.
Rick
Beato.
Rick Beato.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. Maybe someday he can aspire to be on.
Yeah, the way he picks, like just like it's a pick.
Right hand.
Like what? And the guy Rick Beato's like, what is going on here? Yeah, there's like these new players coming out that are just insane.
The Beato guy, I don't know who that is, but is that the guy who just sits and analyzes guitar players?
He interviews a lot of guitar players, and he does a lot of special, and he does some education stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a top 10 or
He's
top
great. I think.
5 hit before, I think, in a band before. He's like been in the producing world, been in the playing world. Like he's very like he's very analytical, like very logical about like what's coming, music that's coming up nowadays.
He got Salt and Pepper hair, and has Tosin sat with him, and they all trip on Tosin. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. Yeah, I know who you guys are talking about now.
Yeah. All the great players are trying to get in with interviews. Even Pat Metheny went in there.
Nice.
Not too long ago, which was an awesome interview.
It was. Yeah, I saw some of that. It's really good.
Yeah.
I just like his knowledge of his questions are great because he actually knows what he's talking about. So it's like, that's what speaking of Beato, I saw, because of his show, I went and saw, it was Beat with it was King Crimson with Danny Carey and all the same guys, but they were like he got them all together to talk about it and stuff. And and I was like, oh, they're gonna go on tour, and it was because of that show. It's a great show.
Wow.
And we have a local here that has ties to King Crimson and Tony Levin and all that. Have you guys ever heard of Tom Gricegraber that plays the Chapman stick, the double tapping kind of thing?
No, but I love the Chapman stick in general. I love watching
he's
that.
One of the world's great players, and he lives in Encinitas, and also a former student of mine from way back.
What?
Yeah, and he plays now. He's filled in. Now he's got the 3rd spot in the California Guitar Trio because one of the guys quit during COVID, and they're a pretty well-known international group, and just all instrumental guitar, crazy off the chart stuff. But now they got Chapman stick, which has a bass element to it, and everything else. It's insane. But since you mentioned King Crimson, I thought you'd appreciate that.
Okay, definitely.
I actually got a quick question for you. I see the guitar in the background. I was thinking, like, with the guitar I've had my eye on, like the next thing I want guitar wise is a John Petrucci Music Man. Is that what's behind you?
That's exactly what this is.
Yeah. How do you like it?
I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I know. I remember I worked at Guitar Center a long time ago. I remember playing it and just being like, that thing is just amazing. I always thought
fascinates me how nerdy you guys are with those things, dude. I'm just listening to him talk. I didn't even know there was a guitar behind him.
Oh, I saw the headstock and I knew exactly what it was.
Yeah, I am so blown out by this guitar. I just absolutely love it. I discovered it when I went to Guitar Center in Hollywood. You guys ever been there? Let me see if I can.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, you've been there.
That big old guitar wall they got there with all the classic guitars and.
Right.
Yeah, they're very cool.
Got my piano over there.
They have like a whole wall of vintage too. I mean, it's to me, it's like the only really good Guitar Center.
Yeah. No, that's like a kind of like a museum-ish Guitar Center. A little bit of a museum. What about that place? Norms? What's it called?
Dude, you're in my head right now. I wanted to see if I could like squeeze that in there.
Norms classic guitar.
Joel, do you want to make sure his audio settings work if he starts playing?
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
I don't get why I'm having so many technical difficulties. I actually worked on all this before we went on.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
I think
this is awesome. This is a guitar I'm looking at. He just picks up and starts jamming.
Oh yeah, by the way.
There we go.
So bizarre, man.
There we go. Is your oh, sorry, I took off the echo cancellation.
You think I think
I'm gonna jump on a different
guitars.
Or yeah.
Problem.
What kind of practice amp do you use at home?
I'm using a Roland Cube.
Nice.
And then I got a bunch of acoustic amps, and I'm really into QSC amps. I don't know if you guys are familiar with QSC.
Yeah, they were more power amp though, weren't they? Or they do power amp for? There it is.
God, I can't believe this.
The guitar the inputs just broke. This guitar actually sucks. I don't like it anymore.
Should we rattle off some plugs while he's doing
we'll do
that?
Plugs right now while he's
maybe just mute Peter while we do the plugs real quick, and then we'll do it. Battleforgecoffee.com, as always, up top. That's where we like to get our caffeine from. We like to be motivated for the day with a cup of Battleforge coffee. That's the brutal truth of it all. Go to battleforgecoffee.com, get your coffee there. GeneratorRehearsalStudios.com, always open for you to go and get wild with whatever instrument you want to get loud with.
There's going to be a new room opening there. Ben's going to announce it too. He's got like the back room. It's like the biggest room. So it's going to be a third big room. So yeah, man.
Rad, dude. Yeah, go get wild over at Generator Rehearsal Studios. Yep. They welcome all people who want to play music in a small room and smell each other while they do it. Thomas, rattle off some plugs for. Oh wait, real quick. We probably don't have a flyer, but what up? Dude, look at me, man.
This is Aristides, dude.
And I'm playing Wish You Were Here, dude. You know I'm playing that.
Incredible.
Everybody on this episode plays guitar, technically.
Technically, dude. I'm in there, dude. I could play some chords. I could play some songs.
That's up there with one of the guitars that I want. That's
a G
Peter's got. One of those Aristides.
That was
Italian
a weird
guitars.
I will say that was a weird feeling guitar because it was so much lighter than other guitars that I held.
It's still got a bunch of carbon fiber and stuff like that in it.
That's what it is. Yeah, carbon fiber. Yeah, that's a Mike Gilbert part of his collection. That's me and Mike's.
Cool.
Yeah, they're very. Those have been turning into a lot of people's favorites randomly out of nowhere. Just this random Italian company. Actually, me and Carrie were going to go to NAMM this weekend, but his family got like pneumonia. They're all sick and stuff. So I was like, all right, we're not going. And the fires were like, do we just go to LA? I'm like fun. And there's like fires burning. It's like, we're not going to just go celebrate in LA right now. But yeah, Aristides is there and stuff. And they have a bunch of everyone that gets to go to NAMM, have fun. That's going to be a good time. Get to check out all the nerd gear.
Let's plug that Defeated Sanity tour too with the fucking professor out there with fucking
Professor
TVV and
Violently
Vomit and
Riff Wizard.
They're already on it, right? They'd already started.
Yeah, they just started. It literally, I think
for it.
Their first show just happened last night. I think
tonight or last night. Yeah,
that's like 9 hours ahead.
Well, that was a mystery.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. We talk. I think it cuts it out because of the echo cancellation. Yeah.
Isn't this is the classic like death metal riff, right? That was a question.
Yeah. Exactly. Like the thrash.
You could argue.
You guys know the tritone is very popular in Europe. It's like it's the sirens.
It's the fire trucks.
It's like the beginning of that Sepultura song.
Yeah.
I remember my guitar teacher back like a long time ago was saying that, like, you know, when he was teaching me the tritone, he was like, this was like you get like burned at the stake for playing this back like in the day. Is that you hear stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't know if it was that severe, but I know, you know, like Handel's music, you probably have heard of Handel's Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the most famous sacred pieces of music in the world, and it's usually done around Christmas time. And when he wrote it back in the day, people were accusing him of writing in secret devil tones.
Oh, that's where that came from. Yeah.
And it was
devil tones, yeah.
Devil's Trad, the Devil's Trad. Yep.
And it was the tritone that, you know, that they objected to.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I remember hearing that too.
It's funny how it's like exactly in the middle of a scale, right? It's like
exactly. That's right.
But it's like this dissonant thing. It's weird.
Yeah.
And Handel was like, "What? I'm just writing 5/7 chord. What are you guys talking about?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
I just want to let's round off the plugs real quick. We got to finish it. It's called the Chronicles of Lunacy Tour, right? That's what it's called.
Oh yeah, I meant to look for that. I'll pull up a flyer and I'll put it on here.
I forgot to post one. Yeah.
And then also I want to just plug one other thing.
Oh, hey, real quick, we got a crazy surprise. Someone just came on here to say hi.
Dude.
Hey, what's up?
Richard, what's up, bro?
Hey.
Oh shit! I was like looking at the squares. I was like, "Whoa, what's up?
Who is this guy?"
How's it going?
Good.
How are you,
Good,
brother?
man. Good.
Good,
That's
good.
awesome.
So everyone that's on now, we have 3 of Peter's students
Awesome.
on the podcast
Wow,
live.
how great to see you all together, man. It's awesome.
That's crazy.
Hey, Richard, I listen to your stuff quite a bit on Spotify. It's fun.
Oh, no,
just-
awesome.
I just pulled them up right now because remember, like randomly, Richard, you posted something on Facebook or something. Check it out, and I went and checked, and like, you have songs that have like 20 million listens. I was like, yeah, I'll help out my buddy. I'll help him out. And he's probably got like, like needs like some listeners.
What should we
It's
look up?
like 23 million. I'm looking right now, 23 million listens. Like
Wow.
7 million for the next song, 8 million. Like these are like human. I had no idea. I was like, what the frick?
No, Richard's
Yeah,
legit, dude.
Thanks, man.
know.
I got lucky. I honestly I put those. It's weird. I made those songs so long ago. The ones that got popular. It's
Mhm.
like I wish I could make another one of those.
That's so cool.
What are you guys talking about?
Did you threw songs on Spotify though, and they just exploded, or how were they in a movie or something? Like that's a lot of listens.
Yeah, like I mean, I think the little luck that I had was my brother made skate videos, and they'd use my music in
okay.
these skate videos, and then
Nice.
the like young kids that watch the skate videos, they always go seek out the music. Like I used to grow up skating, and I would do the same thing because you find new music that way. So that was really helpful. But yeah, like I think that's about it, and then it just sort of got momentum. So
That's
and then
so
you know
cool.
Yeah.
the fine
Right on.
teachings of Peter,
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
But really, actually,
cool.
I was just thinking back in my lessons. I don't know if Casey, if you guys had this, but Peter had like one of the first boomerang looper pedals.
Yeah, dude, I was good. Go for it.
Yeah,
Go for it.
I got a boomerang looper pedal like 3 years ago or something. I was like, wait, Peter had the original one, and
Okay.
he was just
Yeah,
showing, and he had a drum machine. Basically, that got me so hyped to watch Peter because he would play. He was rocking
yeah.
like Paganini, like
Oh,
he'd
nice.
play like a drum beat, then play the chords, and then just start doing like Paganini over it. And I was like, my mind was blown, and I just was like, that's all I want to do now.
All right.
That's so cool.
And you ran with it, and you're so successful. It's so super great to see, man. Congratulations.
Wow.
Thanks.
So
One of my other students, I think Thomas might know him. He's a pro. He's in my band, William Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
He was 15 when he joined my band. He's like 46 now with 4 kids.
Wow.
But he joined my band.
Sounds like me.
He was first a student, and he has a son, his 3rd oldest son, who got into music just only like writing stuff in his room for this kind of lo-fi chill stuff.
Mhm.
You're probably familiar with that.
Yeah.
He's kind of hit it big time. You know, his dad is a great pro and makes a full-time living as a guitarist, and his son is like 16 and just getting millions of hits and
Wow.
Wow.
making more money than
16?
dad now. Just
Oh my
That's,
god.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Wow.
What do you guys think about lo-fi? I mean, I get a feeling when I listen to certain lo-fi music that almost is nostalgia in a way.
Yeah.
There's definitely stuff that I could listen to that gives me the feel of when I used to have my cassette tapes,
Mhm.
playing it on a boom box and actually. So even
For
though
sure.
that might not be the best way to experience a piece of music, it was a way that we did experience a piece of music at certain
Nostalgia.
points in our life. So, there's so many times where the demo song is preferable to the final version because the demo song was the first version you heard and you made your connection with it. So the same thing with like production quality. If there's a lo-fi aspect to something that you make a connection with, you would prefer it in that way, kind of, There's hip hop, there's black metal, there's so many different genres of music that I love in the lo-fi frequencies on purpose. And I know it when you're faking it too. Like there's something about like really catching that vibe too. Yeah. You could go into those weeds and make something that isn't catching that vibe, but there is that vibe that you can get with that lo-fi shit.
I think there's another aspect too where the recording quality has gotten so insanely good that it's almost squeaky clean.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, have you ever gone in somebody's house that's absolutely spotless and you're afraid to do anything?
Right.
Good analogy.
And and I think sometimes there's a comfort and an intimacy in the lo-fi vibe that kind of reflects like, hey, the house is kind of messy, but it's livable.
You can be yourself.
And I don't have to be perfect. And I hear a lot of college students use it when they're studying too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. Yeah, it kind of levels your brain. You get to you don't have to focus completely on it. It could be like cool, chill music that you can actually do work to, and your brain doesn't, click onto it.
Yeah, I had a professor at San Diego State when I was in college, a really ripping theory and composition program, and I was with it for like 6 years. And I remember our first day of class, he was talking about how we're going to learn everything about composition and theory and all this. And he goes, your days of sonic sound baths are over. And he was referring to the fact that we're going to know so much about music that every time we hear music, we're going to be distracted because we're going to wonder what's going on.
Yeah.
I found that for sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of a double-edged sword. Yeah.
Thomas, do you experience that a little bit?
For sure. I spent basically like 10 years playing atonal music, like really modernist kind of classical stuff.
Yeah.
And then trying to do stuff that isn't that, and trying to really even getting into death metal and stuff, just trying to enjoy certain intervals for a whole song and stuff without just obsessing and getting stupidly pretentious and just starting to enjoy music again is a journey.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think getting stuck in a genre is I don't know, it's just the opposite of creativity. I mean, I understand people who like to specialize in something, but I just love the variety myself. And
yeah,
totally,
for sure.
And that's what I was alluding to earlier, is we may be death metal musicians, but we don't take from just death metal. I mean, I started my first love was hip hop music and doo-wop music, because that's what I was being fed and being exposed to growing up, but somehow, some way, I found my way into all these different, genres and versions of music that now I'm listening. There's times where I'll laugh at myself because I'm listening to like a really extreme avant-garde John Zorn piece or something that has no resolution whatsoever, and there's constant tension, and I'm driving to work and I'm just laughing at myself that if anybody were to witness me just driving to work listening to what I'm listening to, they would think I'm a fucking madman.
It's like crazy.
Well, a lot of the thing, I think a cool thing too is that like we were in a death metal band, so it's like when people ask you, oh, like what band are you in, so you have to kind of like already like jump multiple steps to be like it's this style that you're not going to be into. And so like and you have to be like that, so when people show you their music, I turn into like okay, well, let me listen to it, and I would always find something that like is in their music that they're showing to me that I'm like, okay, that's cool guitar tone, that's cool, it's a cool drum beat, like start to find things and styles of music I never listened to that I'm like, if I had to go to a music festival with no bands of the styles that I listen to, I'd be like, damn, he's got a fucking 1956 Strat. It's crazy. What the hell? All of a sudden I'll be like, I'll start to like find things that I'm like, that's cool. I'm like, damn, they're keeping really good time. I'll like find things in
you start selling them to yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's things that I'm like, I'm really like kind of just put myself in their position too. I'm like, that's really cool what they're doing. I actually think that's really cool. And
it's really important to do.
I have a question for you guys about the death metal. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if you guys think about this ever, but I've noticed this with death metal, which is like a lot of music that gets really obscure and technical. But the more I listened, like I noticed that if you listen through a whole song, eventually there's these little like snippets of like, I guess you could just say like really beautiful passages, and then they go right back into like a really extreme part that might be like hard for people to listen to. But
yeah.
I was curious if you guys ever like if that's something that you guys like think about, because I'll listen to death metal all the time, and then you just go like, you just for a moment there's just these like really almost like Bach-esque type movements, and then they go back into sort of like it's madness. Like super dissonant, but I feel like there's something really beautiful about that. And I've heard other, like our friend David listens to this Crazy Jungle, and it's almost like you're allowing this like a little glimpse into like a really special place, but you have to give yourself over to like the madness at first.
Actually is very similar to, I feel like when I was originally listening to Jungle, I felt like kind of the listener that had never heard death metal before, and then had to be exposed to it right away and be like, whoa, what the hell's going on? But there'd be, and then go to the shows and stuff, and then you're like, oh, chill. Like you'd find like cool little things in there, and then it would just be back to like, and everyone knew what was going on, and they would start like cheering, and you'd be like, what happened? I don't know what's going on. And I remember like trying to figure that out. It's a kind of a similar question that you had.
Yeah, I think it's also like, you know, I think there's a lot of bands like an Opeth or something that wants to not only show but play different styles of music. Well, they play under the Opeth name. They started as a death metal band, but there are other forms of music that they want to play and they want to express in, and they just play it. Instead of starting another band, you can just start to weave that into your writing, and your songs become more fleshed out.
Demu kind of did that a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think like bringing it back to like what, like just like the original thought is kind of, it's just like Metallica, really, like, you know, ending some sick solo or melodic part, and then just goes into some heavy whatever kind of like breakdown.
Yeah,
it's just like that with like fast double bass and like more growls, and it's like the same kind of shit. Like, you know.
I grew up on Bungle, so I kind of like was used to the shit changing all the fucking time, you know. So that really isn't like a surprising thing. I can like a band that will just be relentless throughout the whole song, but I also I like those refreshing like breaths of fresh air that you can get in between certain more, because I mean music is all tension and release, right? That's just more blatant form of it that they're doing.
Well, Richard, actually, the question that he asked actually is very tied to when we had, you know, Jonas on. I mean, and Dennis, they call them cookies, is what you want to know.
yeah, exactly. Like the little like, there it is, and take it away.
It's like get you into like a melodic state and be like, and then just like, oh, we're back, and we're back.
Yeah.
It's like commercials. It's like you kind of like
remember
lull you with commercials.
I enjoy the variety.
All right. Yeah. The variety is awesome. That's why I'm so into like prog music nowadays. Just the variety of where they can go. They can be like crazy. They can do a blast beat. They can do a you know, Eastern Indian jazz part. They can go everywhere, and that's why I love.
One of the best parts of classical music, like when you get to Mahler and Strauss and these early 20th century guys, they're very happy writing a really traditional square Ländler. It's like just this old Austrian dance in the middle of this really chromatic and incredibly dense symphony. There's just these beautiful little moments that happen, and it's really magical. I really look for that in death metal or in whatever kind of music I'm listening to. It's really cool when it happens.
Which, by the way, Thomas, dude, show us where you're at, because you gave us a little.
So I'm sitting at work. Here's some of the organ, and then here's the organ on the other side, and then here's the church. So, you know, Cali Death, first episode featuring, or you know, Jesus. Here, there he is.
Wow.
Do you feel a certain vibration now that you're talking about death metal in a church right now, dude?
Oh,
Death
dude,
metal is not religious.
Jesus was an OJ like Suppo fan, man. Like,
yeah. That's the embarrassing thing about playing death metal is people are
It's
like,
really
oh,
life
like,
metal. We should call it life metal.
I know they're like, oh, so Satanism or something. You're like, what are you talking about? Like,
no,
that's not what we're like. We've never gone down that rabbit hole. It's just like what people like that don't understand want to label. They're like, oh, you talk about that. It's like, okay, well, you don't understand.
It's like,
Thomas, what city are you in?
I live in LA, but I work up in Santa Barbara.
Oh, so
nice
there.
Yeah, so we just had I just started up here a few months ago, and I'm really happy.
Love Santa Barbara.
Yeah, it's actually, well, here's where the console. So you notice there's all sorts of buttons and stuff. So I'm really happy with the instrument and happy with this. Just a good situation. So I'm happy.
I remember when you first started on the organ in the church there here at Encinitas.
Well, it's partly you guys with like. Thanks to the Encinitas Guitar Orchestra, I got to see that organ, and that's why I went up and YouTubed it and went down that whole rabbit hole and made it my career. But you guys,
That's awesome.
would totally not have done that if you guys hadn't played that weird fugue I wrote for you guys and for us, I guess. And yeah, this 12-year-old Thomas just going, 2, 3, 4. Oh, okay, yep. And the organ was there, yeah. And Peter going, yeah, man, you got it.
Dude,
that's so cool, dude.
So
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Peter.
Speaking of the Encinitas Guitar Orchestra, you mind if I do a little plug, guys?
Yes, please.
Tomorrow night, we're doing a concert of the Spaghetti Western theme. It's the
awesome,
the Eastwood movies and the director. All the music has been arranged by people in the orchestra, with the exception of about 2 or 3 songs. And we did the concert back in November. It was so popular. We're doing it again tomorrow night, and that's
rad.
So,
is that at the Lutheran Church on Ballure? Yeah,
at the Bethlehem Lutheran. And if anybody's interested, you go to EncinitasGuitarOrchestra.com. It just shows you all the details and the address and all that.
Nice.
Those are really great shows. There's solos, there's trios, quartets, and then the whole orchestra.
We got a lot better. So we've got a group within a group. We call it the Chamber Ensemble, and give them a chance, the advanced players, to do some more advanced work. And awesome. It's a good balance. It's kind of still an educational vibe, but the quality has gone way up. And Thomas's dad is our bass player, by the way.
Oh, nice.
That's rad.
So, Peter, sitting with us right now, you got 3 of your students, and I've already heard you talk about a handful of other students that went on to do successful things. How does that feel?
I want to chime in.
Okay.
Yeah, because, dude, like, it's pretty awesome. Like, we're super stoked to have you all here, Peter, and all this kind of stuff. And I have some pictures of some back in the day, me and Richard back in high school.
Yeah, I recognize those guys.
Yeah.
So for you listeners only, you got it.
Howard and Houghton, so we were next to each other in the yearbook, So
I know. How about that?
So great.
That was perfect, dude. That's so cool that Richard's on too for that picture to pop up, dude.
Yeah, that's perfect. So the whole idea is I actually met Richard through Peter, like before any of my other friends in high school, like David and everyone else. It was like I met Richard when I was like 12, I think, because of Peter. And we jammed with your friend Chris, right? In like Del Mar, Richard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just realized that was a yearbook picture because your last names Howard and Houghton. Dude. You guys right next to each other.
Yeah. But we were both students of Peter. Like I started when I was like 8, I think 8 or 9. I don't know about you, Peter or Richard.
That's weird. I think I was 10 or 11. Yeah.
Wow.
Was that when I was teaching out of a house in La Costa, or was it at the music store?
I think it was
AMX.
AMX, for me. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. Do you guys know that Bud retired from AMX? He and Chris Maxwell took it over, and it's still going. Except they have to call it American Music now instead of AMX. But
yeah.
Whatever legally that is, but You guys were talking about other students that have gone on to be successful, and
yeah,
one of them is interesting. I can.
Well, I didn't real quick. You can totally tell us about that, but that's not what I was asking. I didn't want to hear more about the students. I want to know about you as the teacher, seeing all these kids pursue careers or a life in music after you teach them.
Influencing so many lives.
Yeah. What do you want to know about that?
I want to know how when you reflect on that, how do you feel about that? Obviously, I would think that it would bring you joy to see all these kids pursue their creativity and just know that you were a part of their journey, right?
Oh, it's very rewarding, and it's great to help people get through their goals quicker than I did through mine because of what I've learned, and kind of trailblaze and give students an option in if they're considering a serious career in music, and giving them concrete advice that they can believe in so that they can pursue their dreams with some confidence of, hey, I might even be able to make a living doing this, which is a number one concern for aspiring professionals. Although I have a lot of students who do it for a hobby as well, and just the aesthetics of that, I mean, there's so many benefits to music. It goes way beyond just being a professional musician. And
it is one thing just to be a music teacher, but 210 episodes into this show, we've heard about plenty of teachers that didn't make an impact. And I'm just, not only hearing Casey and Thomas talk about you, and now we have Richard as well, and being in the moment and talking about it right now, it really shows that something about your teaching did make an impact on quite a few people. And I'm sure it has to do with the fact that you show your love for music and your teaching, and make it a welcoming environment when you're doing your lessons, and letting kids explore their own avenues of creativity through whatever instrument they're trying to learn to play. I think all that is woven into it as well. You could just sit a kid down and put a book in front of them and say, play these scales. And
I have something that I have to say to Peter that is like very important, and I think is like something that on full screen that like I haven't seen in a lot of teachers, as being myself like a music teacher for 20 years, and now I have a day job, but I also still teach and everything. But basically, you taught us to improvise, and that was something that was very like, I was like brought up just being like, hey, you got to like improvise and like, find the key and like play in this kind of scale and like find the notes, and then like go outside of that and find your sound and everything. Yeah. And like, and did Richard, we've talked about this for so many aeons of time, like about like how you made it natural for us to improvise. And like, I've taught a lot of students like that just, or they went to other teachers or whatever other place and this kind of stuff, and they just are petrified of trying to like play their own thing or like improvise around it. And so that I think is super important. And Richard, what do you think about that too? Like
I think as a teacher, Peter's really unique because he was like, he could see you and he would work with you in a way that you're like, he wouldn't say you have to learn it this way. He'd kind of give you he's like, this is a good path to go. We were coming in, bringing in all sorts of this like, I mean, when I was teaching guitar, it's that same thing. Kids would bring in Green Day or whatever it would be. And Peter would go, okay, yeah, we could. And he would figure it out by ear. And that was the thing that I always was like, how do you do that? Like, how in the world did you do that? And then when I was teaching guitar, I loved doing that. And it was that thing where you're like, well, music's everywhere, like video games, whatever. He's like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's like, it all is part of this kind of bigger tree of music. And so, and it really made you.
You're gaining knowledge from a sensei, dude.
Yeah. So
Peter was our sensei.
And then, I mean, I don't know how it was for you guys learning music, but I remember like I got a lesson and I was like, oh, it's on. And like it was like a problem. I was like, because I didn't want to ever stop putting my guitar down. You know, it was just so exciting. But I guess
I wish
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know. Like I've heard stories of teachers ruining it for kids, but I was like, oh, that's but clearly you kept on going though. You know, it's like
yeah.
What's that crazy movie with the mean drummer teacher that
Whiplash, dude.
That is a funny one.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I don't want to do
what
that.
If we found out what if we found out Peter was really Whiplash and you guys were all like so scared to say how it really was?
Yeah, we're all like, this is all the opposite of what happened. No, but like so many people like Justin Froze and all these friends that we have like all got inspired by Peter, like and you were like a great technical teacher as well, like showing us the correct stuff, but also it was like you inspired us to like find our own voice, and like by improvising, that's how you find your like sound, your voice, like it's like or you become your identity like in music and stuff. And it was so cool, man. Like and one other thing I want to say real quick is I taught at the school up in SF, and there was a guitar teacher there who was really great, and he was like super fast and proficient and could like do a lot of classical stuff. But I remember just like kind of comparing him to but Peter has this like refined, like perfect approach to like your sound is so like clean and like refined, I guess is the best way to describe it. And so like I feel like I want to hear about your like, of course, like on this podcast, I want to hear about your history, like learning music and going to San Diego State and classical guitar and all the stuff you did. Like I think it's like because that like your story and history kind of like helped form all of our like everything we got to work with. And
that's cool. I had a lot of good teachers and I had a lot of bad teachers on my journey. And I remember I think the thing that inspired me to get started on the guitar when I was a kid was you guys remember that show Bonanza? You guys ever hear about it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
My mom took me to her friend's house who had a son who played guitar a little bit, and I think I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I was so impressed with watching him play. And he goes, hey, I could teach you something. And he taught me how to play Bonanza, and all you have to do is play it on open strings.
That's exactly. That's it.
Nice.
That was it. I didn't even have to use my left hand, and that was inspiring. And I remember asking my dad if I could take guitar lessons, and he said, "What do you want to play? Guitar, or did you want to try trumpet?" I said, "No, guitar. I want to do guitar." And then that went quiet for a while. Then one day I was out playing with my friends football in the street, and my dad drives by and he's waving a guitar out of the window.
What?
So I went home quickly, and I was so stoked, and I quickly got discouraged because my God bless my parents, but they didn't really know a lot about music or how to find a quality guitar. And the strings were like freaking as high as the Empire State Building. It was like they were like cheese cutter, like I was like, oh my God, this is so hard. I couldn't even get a note out of it. I got some notes out of it. One day I was so frustrated, I picked up the guitar and I was going to El Kabong it against the wall. And my mom walked in just in time and stopped me. And I know I would have never gotten another guitar or lessons had I had destroyed that guitar. But
wow.
Anyway, so I continued, and my first teacher used a classical guitar book, and I was with him for about a year or so. And then my mom pulled me out, and later told me when I was older that he was a heroin addict. So they pulled me out of that. So that was a little venture into reading music and classical guitar. And then my next teacher was, a pop rock Beatles type guy. Mm-hmm. So that's when I got into chords, and then it became too far to drive, so we found a teacher locally. And you guys remember the Mel Bay books? Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay, on the inside cover of every Mel Bay book is a picture of Mel Bay, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like old school, like 50s, with a suit and tie, and looked like an executive. And so I would go to my lesson each week, and it was all about reading music. And later on, I realized when I was older, I said, I never saw that guy play the guitar.
Yeah, he's just teaching you.
Right?
And I look back on it, and I go, wow, he was an accordion player.
What? Really?
No
All those
way.
Mel Bay books? Oh my
Yeah.
god.
It all makes sense now, dude.
That was no technical advice. I held the guitar funny, and
Oh yeah, I know. Oh my god.
He
That's
just found
incredible.
he found an
I
avenue
knew
to
it.
make money. He found an avenue. He's like, I'll make tablature
He's
for
like, I know
kids.
notes.
learn how to count. And
Oh my god.
so then when I was 12, we moved to the San Diego area, moved to Vista, and there's this cool music store in town called J&D Music. And I started taking lessons from a guy named Charles, and Charles was pretty educated. He was also an architect. He was a really smart guy. He started me on some music theory and got back into a little of the classical and jazz. And he was a really cool dude, and got me thinking about music a lot more. And then there was a second teacher there who was from old school big band era.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was from New Jersey, and he only played by ear, and he had all these great jazz chord progressions that he was teaching me. I took some lessons from him, and it was all by rote. And so that's a little thing I always remembered, because if a student is really frustrated with reading music, I'll take them through a little season of just showing them until they get excited, and then bring the music back, the reading. I think reading is really helpful. But anyways, he was from Jersey. His name was Andy. He used to call me Peta. Hey, Peta, how you doing? You play Girl from Ipanema for me, and anyways,
Yeah.
very, very inspiring. And as a side note, it's really interesting because he was a great player. If you've ever heard of Joe Pass, the jazz guitarist, he was kind of like that. And but to make money on the side, he would sell these illegal fake books. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of those, but they're like no copyrights. There are these jazz books this thick, and he'd put them in the back of his trunk in the Impala and drive around and sell them to people that showed up at music stores.
Buddy.
And he never.
What
he
was
carried
in these books?
It was like the jazz standards, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And
So it's just their own way of independently publishing and releasing jazz.
Black market
Yeah.
jazz charts.
we call it
Black market
dude.
jazz.
It's like
Yeah.
Too Short selling tapes out of the trunk, dude. It's the same thing.
Anthony.
Come over here. I got some books I want to show you. We're in the back, back of the.
Yeah.
I got some good shit. I got some good shit.
Anyways,
Yeah.
he really inspired me to appreciate chord melody jazz, and then I was about 15, and the owners of the store liked the way I played, and they asked me to start teaching beginning guitar to kids, like G chord, C chord, D chord. So that's when my teaching started, when I was 15, and I just
Wow.
tried to stay a few lessons ahead of each student.
Yeah.
And probably, fast forward to when I was 20, I had a period where I was trying to get a quote real job, and I was working in civil engineering and surveying. I did that for 4 years, but I was still teaching on weekends. And one day I was out in front of Palomar College, running one of those transits, it's like a telescope, and I aimed it at the college, and it landed on the music building. And right there, I had the epiphany. I said, I'd rather be a clerk in a music store for the rest of my life than doing anything else, but I'd rather be a guitar player. So I turned around to my boss and I said, I'm putting in my 2 weeks. I'm going back to school to study music.
Wow.
That was a real benchmark moment. And
So, Peter, let me rewind you just a little bit, because we did talk all about all your teaching and stuff, but I want to know you as an artist too. So talk a little bit about, you you're learning guitar. When's the first time you maybe want to play with writing something or playing in a cover band with other guys? When did playing in bands start?
Yeah, in high school, I had a couple of bands, and we did Battle of the Bands, and we'd play Kiss covers and David Bowie and Bachman Turner Overdrive, CZ Top, stuff like that. And it was all about impressing the girls, that sort of thing. But I dug it. I dug Kiss too. I used to play that Detroit Rock City song, a lot. The one that goes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys recognize that, but that
was.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. Pretty inspirational at the time, but I had learned some classical guitar, and I had my books, and I would every night, before I went to bed, I would kind of look at my music books, and I never admitted to my rock and roll friends that I was playing classical guitar at night. Yeah,
it was like just a secret you had with yourself.
Yeah.
Well, so was back at that time, would that have been frowned upon in the rock and roll community?
It wasn't cool, you didn't want to admit it.
Yeah.
I had friends who were classical piano students, and they never wanted to tell anybody, but anyways, I got over that and started sharing that a little bit, and it started building a pretty eclectic taste of music. Like I just like all styles of music, and but the classical guitar seemed to be a really good grounding for me, and everything sprung out of that, and I learned some great technical things about playing finger style. Like there's a whole science to playing really good clean finger style, and I when I was 20, I started getting some really good teachers that could teach me technique, and then I got accepted to the program at San Diego State, and studying music history, theory, composition, all that, and then seeing how it related to guitar. Man, I just thought sky's the limit. There's just so much music I can get involved with as a guitarist. And I started a record label called Guitar Sounds, so it's mostly instrumental guitar. And I dabbled in jazz, classical, rock, everything. And
that record label you started in your 20s?
Yeah, I was at Palomar College for 2 years, and then I went to San Diego State for 7 more years. I thought I was going to be there for 2 years, but I had to practice. I chose a classical guitar major because I realized that a lot of jazz musicians had a tough time making a living, and the classical guys had more versatility and could get a lot more gigs. And I was able to have a solo career and got on the radio, classical radio stations, and everything just took off from there. But
sorry to cut you off. I was just going to say that you said you thought that you were only going to be there for 2 years, and it ended up being 7.
That's right.
When's the realization that you're in for that long haul? Is it right at the 2-year mark, or is it every year after that you're like, oh, I got another year?
It came pretty quick because I declared myself as what they call a performance major, and performance major requires 5 hours of practice a day.
Damn.
And that's just the guitar. And then there was an hour of piano, an hour of ear training, music history, essays and quizzes and tests and reading. And it was all happening simultaneously. So my day was
like every waking hour, basically. You got no free time.
5 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock at night.
Jesus.
With about 2 hours of private teaching in between to have a little cash. And that was for 7 years, and it was one of the greatest times of my life. I was fully engaged, loved every second of it, and learned so much about music that I'm able to, as a teacher, share a lot and design.
And as a student, do you have you kept in touch with your teachers from that era along the way?
Some of them, most of them have passed away.
Yeah. But your time after going to the school, did you still stay in touch with them?
I did.
Good.
Yeah. some of them would come to my shows, and they were, super happy that I'd done something with it. So yeah, it was I just can't be more grateful enough for that time in my life, because the teachers I had were absolutely awesome. And I got a scholarship to study with the Romeros privately for 5 years, which I don't know if you know who they are, but they're international, unbelievable guitar players and Spanish guitar players. And I was with them for 5 years, and yeah, they really helped me learn a lot of good technique and an appreciation for Latin music, which has kind of always been in my blood. And so when I graduated, I did pretty heavy classical training, but then I was drawn to flamenco and South American and bossa nova, samba, that sort of thing, mixture. So I started in my band with that kind of genre, and that took off like crazy. And I've been working for over 30 years with that group, and the same 4 guys, we still play together.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And they're all full-time musicians, and they're just the best. And I mean, for me, they're the best.
we talk about that on the show quite a bit, about it. It is a blessing to find a group of guys that you just devote your life of making music with. These guys,
30
Casey,
years.
Joel, these guys are the guys, man. Like and
so what actually, no, Peter, same thing, kind of along what Anthony's saying. Like what is it like in a practice, like 30 years in, like going in, just like, all right, it's like you're hanging out. It's like a kind of a mind clearing, kind of like, oh, it's my people that I've known forever. Like describe like going to a practice 30 years in to play with the same people.
We've got about 6 hours of music memorized between us.
Yeah, I bet.
Nice. And then if we, depending upon what kind of gig it is and what the demands of the gig are, sometimes we'll have to learn a couple of extra tunes. So we just hit the gig early, go over the tunes. We email each other the music parts, practice it on our own a little bit, and then pull it together in pretty quick time, because everybody reads, and so we learn it pretty quick. We don't have to practice a lot, to tell you the truth.
That's right.
We do play together a lot. So over the years, we've done hundreds and hundreds of gigs, and a lot of corporate gigs too, which was cool because that's good money and it kept us going. And then we've done concerts, venues, and things. And it's funny with the corporate gigs, we have a funny saying, because we do these 3 or 4 hour gigs where, it's a convention of some sort of company or whatever. And they usually have a speech moment, and we take a break and we all hit the restrooms. And so we came up with a saying, the band that pees together stays together. So
yes.
But it's been a good ride. I can honestly say, and look you in the eye and say, in 30 years, a little more than 30 years now, we have never had a band fight. Not once.
Wow.
That's great, dude. That's again, the word I think of is a blessing, because we've heard so many nightmare stories. Again, 210 episodes into the show, we've heard nightmare stories, dude, and we've always been grateful to have the situations that we've had. So to hear that you have that as well, dude, it's kind of like a cool club that we're in.
It really is, man.
That's so cool.
I just pinch myself all the time and go, wow, this just came together so beautifully. And I wanted to share with you guys something that I thought was pretty interesting that I discovered. It's along the lines of the subject of, how we can appreciate music across many different genres. And the years ago, I saw this science program on KPBS about this neurologist who is a doctor, and he was also a classical pianist from Australia. And he would do classical concerts. He was like fully professional pianist and a doctor. It was amazing.
Wow.
But he asked the question, is music truly the universal language? And, I've had debates with professors back in the past about that. And some say it's relative to your environment, and some say it's organic. just like heat is hot for most of us, we touch it and we feel it. There are certain fundamental sounds that he was proposing that are organic and universal to the world. So he conducted an experiment where he went to a bunch of students, pulled together a bunch of college students from various parts of Europe, and he conducted a test, and he would play these organic sounds, and then he'd have a multiple choice questionnaire, and they would have to check off which emotion they think was being presented.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, like, is this anger? Is this love? Is this, and it was about 50 questions, and all the students, and it wasn't like a song. It was like, oh, or all these different organic sounds.
Non-musicians, right? Non-musicians. They're just people feeling music.
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And amazingly, they all answered universally and 100% the same.
Whoa. Like, right. No, just
kind of come
all
across.
had the same.
Yeah.
Wow.
And to further make his point, he decided to go back to Australia, and he found the most remote Aboriginal tribe that he could find.
Dang.
And conduct the same test with the tribe. And he found a translator, another Aborigine guy that could, speak English and their native language. And he conducted the same test with that tribe, and they all answered universally, 100%.
Wow.
I've kind of come across something similar. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, Peter. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
Go for it.
I in the last few months, I started teaching some special needs people.
Yeah.
And so I have a non-vocal student that I absolutely love to death, and she, she'll, the non-vocal autistic person, she'll like rock out to certain music and stuff, and she'll show, like, you would never know that she has whatever it is the condition is, and it's like such a point of like a point of just something we really have in common with how we react to whether it's Here Comes the Sun or whatever. If it's just some chords we're playing, like it's
a vibrational thing, maybe, like
that's
just
cool.
Getting in some kind of a unison with something. I know, I mean, I talk very much about involuntary emotions while experiencing certain art, and I think that there's obviously plenty of times in film that music's there to push you over that edge of feeling a certain emotion. But 100%. Like, if we watched all our favorite films that have made us react emotionally without a soundtrack, would they have impacted us the same? Probably not. Most likely not. And the fact that I can feel that same thing without watching a film, I can have that same reaction while listening to just a piece of music. And I think it is certain frequencies and vibrations communicate with our body, like, truly. That's why music is just such a fascinating thing for us in general. And the way we experience it on various levels. You could be the people who just have it as their background music to their life, where it's at the grocery store, but it's still this rhythm, this groove or whatever that they can still connect with on a surface level. And then the further deeper you go, the more of a connection you can make, and then now it's just part of you.
There's movies where I talk about, like, I'm watching these like movies that are like newer movies and stuff, and they have a sad scene, like a sad-ish scene. It's not like the most sad scene you've ever seen, but they put this music over it, and you're like, Jesus Christ, like, but in my head though, I'm like, what if they played the
Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yeah, we would just be like, no one would take this seriously. It's like the music.
Baby Driver with music from Looney Tunes.
Yeah, I know, right? It's just like, because it drags you into the sadness, and you're like, well, like, yeah, I get that's a sad-ish thing. It's not like the craziest part of motion history I've ever seen, but at the same time, they throw these chords behind it, And the way that they switch cameras to look at the faces, and with that sadness behind it, you're like, all right, dude, like I'm getting a little teary. This is so I didn't expect this. But if they were to play like a clown song behind it, you'd be like,
but overall, you're actually happy that you reacted. You're happy that you reacted in a way. So if you were to experience that scene again with different music, you would actually be betrayed.
It negotiates your feeling through a movie or through a show or through whatever. It negotiates your.
It guides you.
This is how you're supposed to feel.
It's a tether. It's a tether, emotional tether that they're trying to keep you tied onto the leash. Like, we are going to guide you through all this emotional roller coaster. You know.
Yep. 100%.
When I was a lot of my composition colleagues in school, composition majors, at the time, film composing was part of the component, and they would put together what they call a composer's toolbox. And so they'd catalog sounds, intervals, and rhythms that matched certain emotions, and then they would draw on that when they were coming up with scores for films. And it's pretty fascinating when you see what those elements are. It's like it's almost as tangible as like architectural design or engineering or something. And and they collect these different compositional elements, and they tie them to certain emotions, and it helps them to quickly put together appropriate music for films and to reflect
those kind of handbooks exist all over music history for various periods.
Yeah.
I have some friends at USC that study early music, like Renaissance and Baroque music, and there are entire handbooks of musical gestures. They're so specific that sometimes modern music theory that works very vertically with harmony isn't really adequate to describe what's going on, so much so that, you know, these gestures that have been codified. And so we've been doing this since we've been making music.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah. Thomas took us on a deep history lesson the last time he was on, dude. He made me feel like a straight novice when it comes to music history, and you know. Truly.
I had
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I have a 2-year-old now, and I don't know if you guys.
Dude. Nice.
Thanks. I was remembering when we were talking about sounds making you feel happy right away or sad. I remember as a kid being bummed out when the song would go from like a relative minor or relative major, like for the chorus, vice versa, and just being like, oh, like that's too much for me, like too much change. And as I got older, I was like, I just appreciated it so much. And I actually noticed with my daughter, if a song, she loves a little part of a song, and then when it changes just a little bit, she goes, Dada, put the song on. Like literally, like that's not the same song. And I'm like, that's the same song. It's the same thing. She's like, no, I don't like that part. I want to hear this part.
Right.
And I thought that was really interesting because that, like you connect so much with a snippet, and then you're not willing to like accept the change. As you get older, you just want more and more variation, and are okay with it going from like a little more schizophrenic and stuff,
100%.
I thought that was pretty interesting. Like as we develop,
that's a cool anecdote. I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that your 2-year-old has ADHD, but I'm saying that is kind of how music is today now, right? It is these 2-minute blips of the basic blueprints of what a song is, as long as we have these certain chords that there's a minor and a major area of the song that make people feel one or two emotions, and they want more. They go back.
They're like they're at the peak of their emotion of the harmony or whatever. They're like, oh, this is great, and then it changes. Like, what the? Why would you? Could you not?
And I think that is like this. That's the introductory level of listening to music. You just like a a combination of sounds together, and you want to keep hearing it over and over again. That's what it is, really. And for your daughter to have, you know, her introductions to what music is, and you explaining it to her. I mean, dude, Richard, by the way, for her to have you as a dad, she's gonna be a savant probably by 6, you know.
Oh, unfortunately, she heard. I mean, not unfortunately, it's pretty all right. She heard Frozen, and that's
it's over.
It's just obsessed. And I was actually listening to it,
dude,
you know, and I was like, look, it's pretty
You have to
it's like
succumb.
it moves around a lot, you know. I was like, if you can nail Frozen, you got it.
Frozen's actually kind of awesome. Yeah.
It's kind of tech.
It's kind of tech, dude. Frozen is kind of tech, dude. You heard it here first on Cali Death Podcast.
It's really interesting too to look at the music of different cultures and what elements of music that they tend to favor, like and very often reflects their story or their dominant traits from that culture. And an example would be with Jewish music. I found, because I get hired for a bar mitzvah once in a while or something, and a lot of their music, their folk music, is based in minor keys, right? It was pointed out to me once in a theory class that the minor keys represent a little bit of the struggle, but a lot of them would be in upbeat songs. It'd be like, you know, oompa-pa kind of vibe to it.
Oh,
really
interesting.
Upbeat, but in minor keys. So it was a mixture of telling their story of their suffering and their hope for a better future. And
wow.
Yeah, that is a trait in a lot of those folks, and kind of a cultural trait. And it's super interesting. And you see that in other cultures too, like in Mexican folk music, you see a lot of major keys and a lot of major scales, and a lot of, you know, they like to play those third intervals, you know, with kind of like, I'll give you an example. My acoustic guitar sounds better, but it's like sort of a that sort of thing, you know. And a lot of the music gets dominated with, you know, influences of polka, major keys, and all that. And you go, oh, there's a joyousness there in that music, and it's dominated by major keys. But anyways, you go down the list and you find these interesting traits of certain indigenous music, and it's insightful, you know, because it reflects some of the emotional qualities that culture seems to favor, you know.
That is very cool. That, like, you know, it's like a lot of these, like mariachi, they're like, maybe they use more of the minor thing under a polka kind of beat, but they're showing their kind of emotion of like struggle, but like, we're upbeat about it. Let's freaking keep on. Let's go on. We're good. But like, but also has like a minor, like, this is our struggle under the hands up. Let's keep going.
I think
we're
mariachi is like major though, right? Like,
major is like happy.
Oh, not my mariachi.
Nouveau flamenco stuff has minor keys, really upbeat rhythms.
The polka influence though of the like, because mariachi's got a polka influence, right? That would feel like.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, but like, that's very cool with the what you're talking about, the like music that has like a minor under the.
That's the Jewish stuff he's talking about. My experience with the Jewish traditional stuff is, obviously I mentioned him earlier, but Zorn, he likes to write. His Masada project is all Jewish traditional, how he writes it, and then he gives it to various bands, and then they interpret it through their lens. But it is his sheet music. He wrote it through his Masada lens, which is all based in Jewish traditional stuff. Maybe not all, but that's like he's Jewish and probably has tons of roots in that specific. But yeah, I noticed the minor aspects of Jewish traditional compositions. There is like a somber aspect to it. There's sometimes an evil sounding aspect to it, and that's probably what drew me to it, because it's what, you know, metal music and that have in common, is the minor, more unsettling stuff.
Go for it.
Oh, so Ian's got a question. So, Pete, were you ever into Chet Catalo or Django Reinhardt?
Of course, Django, right?
Oh, Django Reinhardt for sure. A lot of gypsy jazz sort of vibe, and
nice.
A lot of that kind of chunk rhythm. You know, I don't know if you.
I remember working on a Django song with you in earlier.
Sort of like,
really? Nice.
Nice.
You know, and you're
Nice.
kind of pumping the chord so that you're pressing and releasing, so you get that chunk sound. You know.
Yeah.
Instead of continuous sustain.
What are those pedals on a piano that do that, where you mute a chord? Is that kind of the same thing you're talking about?
Oh, the sustainer.
Yeah,
Thomas.
definitely. The dampers come up and help you out.
That's
there.
what
I think
it is.
with the piano, it's a bit more with, you do it more with the fingers, where you lift. That can be kind of like the left hand on the guitar, I guess.
Staccato.
You like staccato. Yeah.
Sick.
And crazy Django, you know, he only had 2 fingers on his left hand, so
Yeah.
Crazy.
Really?
Whoa.
Crazy.
anything's
know
possible, right?
Yeah.
I actually saw a concert once with a guy who played with his feet. He was born without arms.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
I've seen
They got like
some-
solos with the feet and stuff, and
Yeah, he would use
Videos from busking while it's just on the ground and he's shredding Metallica or something.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
yeah, anything's possible, like you said, Peter. I mean, that's like if you put your you got 3 toes and no arms, like people are soloing. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, all right, what's your excuse, dude? Like, you know, it's one of those where it's like, all right, Jesus.
Like Jason Becker is still writing music.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Like with his eye, right?
Yeah,
he's got
dude,
a whole system with that.
We've talked about it on the show, but it always fascinates me. I actually, just to like do a quick little podcast history with me and Joel, our first podcast we ever did together was the Aurelia cast, and the day before, or maybe that morning, we watched the Jason Becker documentary, and I got to understand how he's still, not only is he just such a bright light, even in the, you know, darkest aspect you could think, being trapped in your body, right?
Yeah.
But the jokes that he makes with his dad through how they communicate, and learning how he uses his eyes to communicate. And
his dad created the language for him. His dad created a language with the board with it was like up, it's 2 movements, 5 movements. So once you go like left, that means that you're in this bucket of these letters, and then you go left again, or you go. He made up a whole language for him.
Yeah,
and so his dad will be reading his eyes and be like, "So you are a dumb." Okay, Jason, you know, his
dad's his interpreter, so he has to read whatever Jason's saying, and Jason's making jokes that for his shit for his dad to say inappropriate shit. It's hilarious, dude.
Yeah,
and then you hear the producer being interviewed that he sits in the studio with, and the time that the producer realized how Jason kind of works, which is while he's what would be the word? He's kind of the stenographer, not a stenographer, but he's recording whatever Jason's coming up with in the studio.
No. They have a he has a system like what Richard was talking about with his eyes, where they put something on his eyes and he looks at notes and he uses his mouth. And he goes like to select the notes.
Yeah, but before that,
and then he like completely records a symphony with it.
maybe they came up with that technology after they found out that Jason was looking at a guitar on the wall, and he would, and so the producer realized that's how Jason's writing with him, is Jason's looking at the guitar and actually seeing it being played.
He'd look at the guitar and just and break down the notes. And they'd have all these, you know, like everyone Eddie Van Halen's like where he got started, and like he came jam some stuff with them. Every guitar player that's like a top tier guitar player, It's like kind of like, everyone goes and shows him like respect and whatever he wants to do. They're like, fucking, we'll do whatever I'll record whatever you want. Like, because he is the absolute, like, one of those guys that was on the up and up as like the next guitar player, and then just gets ALS, and then that whole story is David Lee Roth was like, after Van Halen was like, this is the best guitar player in the world, I'm gonna get, and like during the recording he like starts limping, and then it's like, oh, it's fine, I don't know what's going on, and like finding out that story is like bananas. Like that was one of the probably the crazy. He lives in Concord too, right over like probably about an hour from me. But
you guys want to hear an interesting Van Halen story?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, my family, including myself, we immigrated from the Netherlands when I was a little kid. And, Eddie Van Halen's from the Netherlands, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we arrived, we first lived in Long Beach and California. And my parents, they didn't speak much English. And they would go to this thing called the Dutch Club. And once a month they would have like a band and dancing and all that. Well, guess who the band was?
Oh God.
It was Van Halen. Like, guess what? It was their dad. He was a sax player, and he was doing like, pa Dutch music and dance music. And
what?
Guess who was playing bass and drums? His boys.
Wow.
When I was a teenager, I could tell my friends, hey, my parents, they get down to Van Halen.
That's crazy, dude.
Met Eddie Van Halen and his brother as a kid. That's kids.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yes. That is crazy.
That's so
dude. I mean, I have no way to really like respond to that. That's like
by a very long shot, the coolest Van Halen story I've ever heard.
So how old were they at that time?
Well, let's see. I was 4 or 5 years old, so my dad would be 25, and my mom would have been 27. Yeah.
And then the Van Halen kids, how old do you think they were at that time?
Well, I think I'm about the same age as Eddie, so he must have been like 9.
They were young ones up there.
I think he was a little older than me. I think he was probably 9 or 10 or something like that.
Wild.
Wow.
Yeah. And
there's always these stories. I mean, especially like in and out of like music stores and stuff. There's always the guy that has the story about Eddie Van Halen or Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. My dad's got the one about, you know exactly what I'm talking about, Peter. Actually, this is actually what I'm kind of alluding to. Is like, so my dad like saw, Neil Young playing a bar back in, the 60s or something with no one there. And and he's met like, like Bob Marley playing, but
really?
How many, but at the same time though, this is the question for Peter, because I always run into these people. Like, I worked in the music store for, 2 years, 2 or 3 years. How many of these stories do you think are credible? Because I feel like there's so many of them that I'm kind of like, at the same time, it's like, I used to know, well, it's kind of like the one-upping, I feel like, a little bit with a lot of the old cats.
I was friends with Beethoven.
Yeah. It's like, and like, I kind of feel like, I don't know, there's so many of them, and there's, when you go to these guitar stores or guitar shops, that I feel like I do the kind of side eye now, like I kind of don't believe them, but I do believe them. But I want to know you're on.
The ones that I believe the most are the ones that are musicians.
Okay.
Usually they're pretty close to true, and of course you're going to run into exaggeration, but it's the ones that only buy guitars but never play them that exaggerate.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Okay. Good answer.
Yeah. I have a question for all you guys, and for Peter, but you guys are all shredders. I was curious, like, well, I took flamenco guitar lessons from this guy in San Francisco for like 6 months, and I came in there like just all I wanted to do was shred. Like I just want to play like Paco, and he laughed. He just laughed. He was like, "No, that's crazy." Like he's like, that's not for everybody. Certain like physicality, like your fingers, like certain people's hands, like don't want to just do that. It's almost like athletic. And I was curious, like, for you guys and Peter, like how important is it for you to just continue to like shred, or like at a certain point you just kind of go like, that's good enough. Every once in a while I'll catch myself and I'm like, man, I'm so sloppy, and I'm like, I could really get that tighter. But then I'm like, is it necessary? I don't know. It's just
true.
when I was younger.
Yeah, Peter's the one that answers.
I saw Paco in concert with Al Di Meola and John McLaughlin.
That's the best.
And it was a very interesting experience because they're all like burners and shredders, right? I mean, they're like, it's like 3 machine guns going at the same time,
right?
And I was at the concert, and a guy named Steve Morse from Dixie Dregs opened.
Yep.
Wow.
And he opened up just acoustic, just him and his guitar, right?
Damn.
And so these guys were shredding so much in the concert. I'd say about an hour into the concert, the crowd started chanting, "Bring back Steve." I'm not exaggerating. I'm not telling a tall tale. I was there, and they graciously let him come back on.
Wow.
But what I learned from that was that shredding isn't what it's all about.
That's an aspect. That's an aspect, though. It's not like
did Steve play along with them?
Well, that's what he's saying. Like, it's like shredding is not what it's all about. Like, too many notes. Like, it gets people just go like, all right, dude, we get it, we got it, dude. It's like we need to bring it back to like melody and like let's get some catching. Let's get something in here. It's like, if you're gonna be like, everyone's gonna be like, cool, dude. Well, I don't play guitar, so it just sounds like kind of like cool. At the, a lot of people.
Noodles.
That's cool, dude. That's thank you.
Bowl of
all right,
noodles. It's just more noodles.
Fulfilling, I would say, outlines for a concert is where you touch on a lot of different human emotions. But if you're just feeding one emotion the whole night,
exactly.
You're gonna lose your part of your audience, no doubt.
Non-guitar player here, other than playing a few songs. But actually, I am technically a guitar player. Casey gave me the honorary guitar player, so I am a part of this conversation.
There he is.
Yes, I am validated.
Anthony,
validated.
So for Peter, Anthony, tell him the one song that you know how to play.
Dude, I can play the beginning of "Wish You Were Here" so good, dude. That Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd.
Hell yeah, that's amazing. That's
There's
better
a
than
handful
me.
of other ones, but
Peter
that's my most complex. So I always use that one as my representation of myself.
Speaking of which, here's a picture of me and Richard.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I will say that although that
so cool.
The guitar trio is intense. That if you listen to Friday Night in San Francisco, there is a wide, varied range of stuff that you're going through.
It's like a musician. It's a musician's listen. It's kind of a musician's listen.
It's absolutely awesome. I got to meet Paco once at another concert, and I shook his hand after, and I went home and I thought I could shred after that, and it didn't work.
like he passed the power to you a little bit.
I feel like that's what drew me to classical music, is that you have music that can really bridge those gaps really successfully. I think because keyboard instruments have been around for, I guess about as long as guitars and lutes, and you get a guy like Chopin that comes along whose entire approach to technique is he said technique is just the ability to get your thoughts out eloquently and clearly. And so if you're playing a Chopin ballade or something, your technique might come across as how you're voicing a chord, or how you're phrasing a melody, or how you're pacing this really intimate moment. But in the same breath almost, or at least in the same piece, maybe even in the same section, you'll have this almost unplayable moment or section. And I feel like I just, again, it's back to our point about variety. I just naturally gravitate to music that really does that. And so I think for me, shredding, at least in classical music, is like really using the full potential of the instrument or instruments you're writing for. Like a great orchestral composer like Ravel will shred, I guess, onto paper, and how he uses the orchestra to its fullest expressive potential, I guess.
Yeah,
100%. That's very cool. Yeah, I mean, I've getting older. Jesus, I've had a couple glasses of wine, but as I've gotten older, as far as like it used to be like kind of with metal and stuff, it was got a little competition-y, like kind of like who's going to be the crazier one, kind of like kind of losing a little purpose from music a little bit, just being like who's going to be the craziest, like who's going to and like later on finding bands that were giving you the ups and downs, like giving you the the calm down, this is a beautiful part, to like we might give you this, we might not, whatever, it's like like going all over the spectrum of just of music, and just giving you a story, not giving you just a or a
world building.
Like yeah, exactly. Like giving you a full picture that's painted for you, not like
sometimes I do like a
one case
every now and then, just like one quick little grind or
fucking. That's what the organ's
story real quick. Fucking
Well, the one thing I want to like reiterate about Peter is like I said, dude, like having like a really refined style of like being able to create tone. Like I was listening to your albums and like kind of like re-listening to stuff, and just like it's just like this beautiful tone out of the guitar, and like the playing is so like from the heart, and just like there's like a spirit behind it, and like I love that, dude. And like I've seen you shred. I know you can shred, like you've taught me how to shred. Like, and it's like, but it's just so nice hearing like great music with a really nice tone and nice guitar and stuff. And like, and yeah, I mean, that's
Casey
like,
send us which album did you send us? I forget the name of it.
I can't. Oh, Saturday Morning.
Yeah, I was like, dude, this is like the perfect
really
camping soundtrack, dude.
I remember two things Peter
as
said.
you're camping, dude.
Was it Richard?
I remember two things that Peter taught me when I was how to practice slowly. He was like, if you went in there and tried to play it all fast and didn't nail it, he would just be like, it's no point. Like, slow it down until you can play it just like you want to play it. And then he said, and they say, if you play it 100 times, it's like hardwired. He's like, you'll never forget it. So I remember like, that's like a cheat code, honestly. Like if you want to play anything, you can just play it slowly.
How many times in your life have you learned a riff and then you did count the 100 and you're like, all right, dude, I made it past the 100, dude. I'm invincible now.
I remember thinking like, that's a lot of times, but then I'm sure we play it way more than 100, but to like play it correctly, but
you're in class, you're like, all right, I played it 17 times yesterday. I think I could play it 13 times tonight, dude.
So like my thing is like I've seen a lot of like players like that play like fast and do all this, but they don't have like but they might not have everything like there, like it's not all clear, and like, but with Peter it's all clear and it's all there. And so like that's the thing, like that refinement and being able to like play a classical track or like playing a rendition of any kind of song, like a chord melody, but like just playing it so beautifully and clear, and with like there's like a feeling behind it. It's like you are the full package, So that's the thing that's more important than the shred. Like shredding is great, but the full package and like the artist, like that whole thing.
That's awesome.
You're not fully connecting with the music if you're trying to just get it out as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, how do you take like, because you have like, I can tell you have a refined style. Like if you were to, for me, this is my overthinking brain. If I were to be playing something perfectly, like in a classical guitar style, and then I miss something, goes like completely like a weird note. Like where do you go for, like where does your brain take you from there? Because for me, it's a absolute freak out. So like it gets worse from there. Like where do you go when you miss a note that you, I don't know, just it's obvious that you missed it?
Well, yeah, there's you got to diagnose it a little bit like a surgeon, and you ask yourself, is this a technical issue? Is this a rhythmic problem? Is this playing the right note in the right location? And Pepe Romero used to tell me, he said, if you want to learn how to play fast, practice slow. You guys are right on that subject. Yeah, it's interesting. About a year ago, I went to a Pepe Romero master class, and I hadn't seen him in quite a while. And he starts off the master class. And he says, "Here's how I start my day." Now, mind you, Pepe Romero is considered the greatest Spanish classical guitarist that's ever lived, and he shreds, but he plays everything, Bach and Beethoven and whatever, and he's just not just shredding, but he goes, "Yeah, here's how I start my day."
It's control. Yeah.
And he does it on all 6 strings, on all the frets. It's the first thing he does every day. And he tries to get in touch with the tone. And then him and some other great world-class players, I learned from them that breaking things down into small segments or phrases, master the phrase before you go on, so you don't accumulate mistakes. Your mind can stay on a shorter amount of information and fix things before you accumulate like 10 mistakes, and fix them along the way, and take your time. And
that's actually cool. Like I'm thinking about, you're also kind of somewhat reminding yourself of what each note sounds like to your ear. Each day you're going through the whole fretboard and playing each note single by itself.
I was quite amazed when I saw him do that, and I go, "Wow, at this level, and you're still doing that." And then the mantra I heard over and over and over is, "Hey, Peter, you want to learn how to play fast? Practice slow."
That is actually, what's really funny about what you saying that is that I watched, it's a basketball player, Stephen Curry. He's the best shooter of all time, whatever, like what he does for his start of his day is he stands a foot away and just shoots a foot away. That's what, just 1 foot away. It's kind of like what you just showed us right there. Just like, down, like just get the basics down. And he makes sure the ball goes and he steps like another foot back, and he does it again. And then another foot back, and then he does it again. He doesn't start shooting threes and doing all these crazy circus shots. No, he stands a foot away and just goes like, he's the best shooter in the world that's ever lived. There's not even a comparison to him. And he goes like, every morning, this is what I do. I just stand a foot away.
Yeah,
it's like from the absolute
so comfortable with that. It's like so normal to him.
Or Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods hit 1,000 golf balls a day. He would, and I guarantee he would start with chipping probably.
Well, I actually did that with I put a basketball hoop up here just to like get some exercise and stuff, and I would just stand a foot away and just do like for like 5 minutes, and then I would just back up, and the ball goes in the basket more. It's like that. I was completely amazed. I was like, what is going, like I'm standing like 30 or 40, like 30 feet away, and it just swishes, I'm like, but before, if I didn't do that, it would just be like not even get near the whole thing, like it kind of just like get you in line of like, all right, get in line with the basics, get back, like you're waking up a new day, just get back to the basics, understand what's
the
going
journey
on.
Dude. That's
very cool, Peter.
Everyone wants to get to point B, but it's like the journey is doing that work that most people don't want to.
You want to skip over it, just get to the fun stuff. Get to the fun stuff. Go to the fun stuff. Like no.
If you're touring with really technical music, like Chopin, Liszt, you name it, all these classical guys. If I kind of see it like Money in the Bank. Like I can play it a certain number of times up to tempo until I just have to kind of reinvent the wheel with it and just. Really hash it out for a few hours a day, because it'll just get sloppier and sloppier, and the wrist will start hurting if I play it fast too many times.
Yeah, and you play like an octopus. So
how do you guys deal with making like a mistake on stage? Like if it happens, like if you just go like, "Oh, I flubbed that note," you're just like, "Well, like just
for
keep
us,
on going." Yeah.
Blame it on the audience always.
Thomas or Peter. That's like Thomas or Peter. It's like you guys were. It's like that's why I asked Peter that question. Is like because you guys are playing a lot.
Don't grimace.
Yeah. That's one thing, right? You don't want to show that you've messed up on stage. That's the main thing. Is like, you want to look back and just be like, deal with it. Because a lot of people will feed the energy, be like, "Oh, they messed up." So I can tell by their.
So while we still got
my
Peter,
computer's about to go out. So
All right, Peter.
Peter, I gotta put this picture on really quick. This is me at like 14,
Nice.
playing with Phil Keggy at the church that on Ballure Street, right?
Nice.
Wow.
Thomas is playing. That's me on the right.
That's a fantastic picture.
I know, right?
That's so cool.
That was good stuff. So,
That's awesome.
Peter, we love you, man. Like,
Dude, Peter, you're so cool, dude.
Thank you for
You
hanging
guys
out.
still hear me because my
What'd you say?
I didn't hear him.
I think his computer is dying. Like,
all right. Thanks a lot, guys. I really enjoyed it. I'm sorry my computer's about to die.
That's all right, dude.
You're all good, Peter.
No
That was
worries.
awesome, dude.
Bye,
Cheers,
guys.
Peter.
I'll jump off too.
Very
Bye,
nice
dude.
meeting you, dude.
Yeah,
Cheers.
dude,
You guys.
all good. Yeah,
That was awesome.
no worries.
That's
Thanks, Peter.
really cool.
Thank you.
Rock on.
That was really cool.
That's so cool.
I don't know if he knows how to exit.
All right,
You
man.
can just, yeah.
There he
Peter.
goes.
Chill.
It's funny how
gosh.
if that was his computer dying like a slow death, you know. It's
No,
like,
Yeah,
it doesn't just-
it's like
Battery saving mode.
yeah.
Like Voyager is going
he
behind.
slowly loses connection to the internet as well. Like it just,
Yeah. No, it was like his power charger wasn't working out. We were trying, but it wasn't working out. So.
nah, dude.
Before
but
you
that-
leave, Richard was talking about leaving. So before you leave, Richard, talk about the guitars in the background.
Oh,
The bass?
dude,
3 guitars? Or
You got
what's that
Richard
covered
here.
one?
yeah, what?
You covered
Yeah.
one?
dude, they're
Covered the guitar?
super random ones. Actually, like this one right here, you can probably see.
Yeah,
that one was
the bass.
our friend. You remember John Green?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was his red bass, and I just like collaged it. It's like
What?
a old
Oh,
Squire
nice.
fretless,
So
and then
cool.
that's
fancy
a crazy baritone bass right there that Casey gave me. I also believe
That was also John.
Was it?
Ray. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then that's like
I think I
that's a
remember
classic.
seeing that one in person. Casey, did you have that at the Daly City apartment?
No, that
Oh.
was after John passed. That was his guitar, like the baritone.
The Jaguar? The Jaguar?
Yeah, that was John's. Yeah.
And then this one's just the
And then what's that one in the middle again, Richard?
Les Paul classic. I've had that one since I was like 17. That was like my first really nice guitar. I was just so stoked to get that. I remember going into
Yeah.
Guitar Center.
You had that
Like-
back in the day, dude.
Yeah, I've had it for a long. It's like super solid. I really like it. I think those are, people are. It's vintage now.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I got a crazy like vinyl lathe here. I don't know if you guys could see that.
Whoa.
Looks like a sewing machine. But
Dude,
that's,
the videos I see you making vinyl is so cool, dude. That's absolutely
Thanks.
bananas.
yeah, that's
Follow
like
your account, Richard. This is so cool.
Yeah.
thanks, man. That's like a 1960s vinyl lathe that I actually like went to Brazil because I found it and they're super rare. And this guy had one, and my friend, he became one of my good friends. This guy Arthur Jolie. But yeah, so this is like
We
the
gotta
studio,
have
it's
like a Richard Gear corner, dude, because you've always had the crazy shit, dude.
Yeah.
You really have, dude. There was a party at Dan Egger's house in Oakland, and you brought this crazy fucking keyboard thing that you would like wave your hand over one.
Oh,
part
it's
of
one of
it.
those oscillators, or what do you call
Like the
those?
D
It's like
beam,
you're-
or Roland or something.
There was a
Yeah.
sensor on it that would like
have that on my
pick up
guitar.
your hand or something.
they're like
and you
normal,
could,
oh,
like
like a theremin.
manipulate how the
Yeah.
note was
Like a theremin,
hit
yeah.
and all that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, Theremin. Yeah, Theremin. Yeah.
Yeah, I got really into like some of like the tape machines and stuff too. I have some in the other room. Something about it, like just something about not using a computer too, and like machines
Yeah.
that were dedicated to music are really special. I've noticed because like
Yeah.
that's all they thought about when they made them. They're like, this is a music machine, and like a computer is just it does everything. So and they're amazing. But yeah, I got sort of into it, and like the simplicity of all that too. There's something too about
Totally.
like there's something cool about the mechanical side of it too. It's like you can
Yeah,
take it
dude.
apart and see how it works and stuff.
Experimenting with film right now is like a thing
Mm.
again, and vinyl's a thing again. That's cool that you got like physical
Physical media,
non-digital ways of
Tangible.
creating. It's a nostalgia that I think that is, I mean, dude, I've said it so many times, but Jinkos are back, skate shoes are back, fat tongues are back,
Finger skating is back.
Yeah.
Dude, there is this 30-year loop that we do as a culture, and right now the 90s are the thing. And so is with the physical media. We saw it.
But there's
going
gonna
to
be things though. There's gonna be things like not just buying Jinkos, but like things like you have to like press your own like vinyl. Like they're not gonna just be like, yeah, that's too much work, dude. I don't want to do all that. they're gonna skip all that. But like that's what, when you were just describing the things that you had, I was like, yeah, that's like kind of the mind. That sounds so fun. Oh Jesus, that was me.
But I also think that to have those types of equipment is a different way to experiment, and actually, like, it's not as easy as making a file and deleting a file. You know, it's you're making it the old way before it was that easy. So it kind of boxes you in a little bit, but at the same time, you find new ways to like.
Richard's the anti-AI, dude. He's the anti-AI, and I love it. I love that.
It's the same.
Richard does. Yeah, same with Thomas. You can't replicate what they're doing. You cannot.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if we didn't see these machines, we wouldn't assume that it would even work. I you know, like we just kind of take it for granted that computers are what they just do everything. And to see them, like I saw this machine that records onto a metal wire. And I was like, how is that even possible? You know, so it teaches you about like physics and things like that I think we don't even really like think about as much. I mean, I think some people, I don't know exactly how these things work, but there is something fascinating about like, oh, you could use this as well for the same purpose as like the computer or whatnot. But
wow,
yeah, it's crazy. There's
several times on the show I brought up how it trips me. I understand, I can wrap my head around a vinyl record. I know there's a needle and there's a pathway that needle.
He's recording on a metal string right there, dude.
So that needle takes a pathway, kind of like fucking the Star Wars scene where the fucking thing goes through the
like vibrations.
So it's following. But I've asked people to try and like, I've always imagined it like I've imagined it as like steps, but I was wrong, dude. I finally saw a picture that explains it and how the needle is run through like a valley that the left signal and the right signal, or I don't know if that is that what it's called. When it's
Richard, explain it because I want to know what that is.
I actually have. Let me see if I saved the picture, dude, because it tripped me out. We can pull that up.
Yeah, it's a valley.
Richard, explain it because I am intrigued by this.
How they make stereo.
So I always tripped out on the idea of a needle following a surface and like not only sound coming out of it, but Casey's drums coming out of it. Joel's bass lines coming out of it.
There's psychoacoustic
Richard's got it.
There's like our minds are able to interpret vibrations in the wildest way. Like it's beyond that part's beyond my understanding. But like I think the way to look at things in the simplest way is look at a speaker, and all it's doing is moving back and forth at various rates. And just with that, we're able to hear everything we hear. So that alone is like, I can't explain that. Like our brains are able to interpret these vibrations. And I think another really cool thing is we're able to hear multiple vibrations at once. So like a slow bass sine, like bass wave will also have superimposed in it lots of little vibrations like the upper harmonics and upper frequencies. And that's all coming in at once. But so the vinyl record is basically just taking like pressure waves and storing it inside of just like this plastic. And the stereo information is a little more complicated, but if you just think about it in mono, it's just like a squiggly, like a snake. And by going back and forth like that down a groove in a spiral, it's basically going back and forth, and that's all your speakers just mirroring that. It's like that's why it's analog. So the needle's writing down, wiggling back and forth, and your speakers just following exactly what that's doing. It's just amplified. So like you can put your ear up to a record and actually listen to it. It just sounds like really, really quiet. I don't know if you guys have heard that before. Like if you just play a record without turning on your stereo, you can hear the music. It's there.
Fuck, dude, I've never done it before. I want to fucking do it, dude.
yeah. So that's and that's what's so cool. It's just an analog signal. It's like it's not being reinterpreted. It's just being amplified by.
I mean, dude, it's
like a microphone, like a microphone, just like amplifying that needle, just touching it, just like from. I mean,
it's very similar. Like the most archaic thing
vibrations.
You could just like get a needle, tape it to a microphone. If you could let it ride the groove, it would like play through your amp. Yeah.
How did who figured this out? What's his name?
Well,
Edison
got famous for it, but like they actually like made a sound recording in France, and like they put smoke on a plate, like a glass plate, and then were able to like make recordings, but they couldn't play it back. So they were like, damn, like you can see the squiggle, but they had no way to like play back and put it into like an actual physical thing. Yeah. So
yeah, dude, that it's just so trippy and psychedelic to think that and the vinyl being the physical manifestation of sound, it's there. You just have to find the right way to express the vibrations that are within this spiral.
I got a question.
Ones and zeros, dude. Ones and zeros are way more interesting, though, dude.
I have an important question.
Yeah.
So Richard, so Thomas here plays organs in like big churches and like
huge,
right,
cathedrals and shit. Like, how would you record that, Richard, with like microphones? How would you like? Okay, I'm gonna record him doing that. Like
we're tasking you with this, Richard, right now. You have to do it right now.
Yeah,
if you had like no budget, or you could just what would be your ideal setup for?
Wow. Well,
there's benefits to this question.
It's like you would probably just almost want to get a stereo, like how you would mic a piano, but try to go back a little ways, like and probably a ton of ambience in the church. But I have no idea. I know they use ribbon mics, I believe, a lot with like inside like church recordings and classical recordings. But I'm that's what my guess is, just get a nice little stereo image, like drum overheads. But I have no idea.
I mean,
I would trigger each tube.
How do you do it, Thomas?
I have not done it that successfully, but the way I've seen it done is pretty much how you're describing, to have kind of a central source for the stereo and have you have the budget, like 3 different sources of stereo, one really close up to the pipes, one about like a third of the way out, and one at the back of the church, especially like in a giant reverberant building and like in Europe that's got like 8 or 10 or 12 seconds of acoustic. And because for the organ, that's a big part of the tone is kind of mapping it around that building. And then I think there's Christoph Frommen. He's this like German guy that records organ for Deutsche Grammophon and stuff, and he has a setup, I think, with 32 microphones that he sets up in this church, and it takes him hours and hours. But it sounds great. But I'm definitely not the guy to give you specifics on that.
Well, yeah, because if you really think about it, your expression is a live setting. It really is the space that you're doing it in.
The notes.
And
live setting plus the notes.
Like it's not the same. A stand-up comedy special may be funny when you see it at home, but it's at no way gonna ever touch being in the audience for it.
And organ, you can really not reproduce it at all. Like you cannot. That's why like people do. Like I book these tours in Europe and I lose tons of money on them, but I'm just there to try and play that organ and experience it. You know what I mean? Because
you were telling us that there's
they'll even make copies. Like at Eastman in Rochester, they went and did like this 3D computerized like analysis of this German Baroque instrument from the 1690s, and they rebuilt it part for part, exactly the same organ that they replicated with the same materials and all that, in New York, in this building that has a totally different acoustic. And it sounds like a totally different instrument. and it plays different, like the way it responds to your articulation, it's just a vastly different instrument. Yeah,
and that makes your playing environment different, because it's actually the instrument you're playing is also the building you're in. It's
the
wild,
building is
dude.
hearing an organ concert's like sitting inside a guitar.
Dropping, like what kind of guitar body do we have here?
Are there any
we
holy
got
grails?
rebar.
Are there any holy grail organs, like you're like, if you're like, you've got to go listen to that one
that you haven't played yet?
Dude.
And tell Richard about some that you have too.
In 2023, I went to Hamburg, Germany. It's an organ by Arp Schnitger, was this German organ builder in the 1680s. And it's an organ that Bach, a bunch of really important people played. And it's the biggest North German Baroque organ that's left. And so you sit down at something like that, and I was just in tears. I was playing Bach. I was like, these are the pipes that this guy heard. You know what I mean?
Is it equal temperament?
No, it's what is it on that organ? I mean, it's some kind of mean tone. I think it's quarter, maybe fifth comma. It's not exactly what their tuning system was at the time, because you wouldn't be able to play like even stuff like you would be able to play Mozart or even later Bach pieces on it. It'd be really heinous, but
damn.
Yeah, but yes, there are holy grail organs all over France, all over Europe, and in America there's several. There's the Wanamaker organ in Philadelphia. That's the biggest fully functioning organ in the world. It's 29,000 pipes in a department store, and each floor is about the area of a football field, and the top 5 floors are filled with pipes.
What? That's insane.
There's 6 keyboards, and there's 64
They're so dedicated.
And there's a guy named Kurt Mangel, who's probably one of the greatest organ technicians of all time, who has a full-time job maintaining that organ. Wow. And there were 3 different organ builders that worked out. Well, the LA Organ Company in 1910 or so, Los Angeles Organ Company built a third of that organ, so about 11,000 pipes, give or take a few, and went bankrupt. And they put that organ in storage, and they put it up in Philadelphia and tripled it in the 20s, you know. So yeah, there's hundreds of holy grail organs for all sorts of different reasons. Some of them are tiny, but like there's this organ in Arnstadt that's tiny, that's not really anything to write home about, but J.S. Bach was organist there for 3 years, so they hold on to that one. Yeah. Wow. It's so cool.
Who's that?
Yeah. Okay. Who's that? Yeah, he was pretty good, I guess.
I just heard this crazy story about Bach and the Goldberg variations, about how like supposedly those were written for this guy that couldn't sleep, and and he gave the task of his student, I think who is Goldberg or something, to play for this like rich guy, like his personal like player, to help him sleep. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, he had some kind of, you know, whatever they had back then. It's hard to diagnose them retrospectively sometimes.
Yeah.
For some reason, this Duke couldn't sleep, so he asked Bach to write this piece, and so he would it's this kind of, I mean, it's Goldberg's. If you take all the repeats, it's well over an hour, and it's this ever evolving cycle of variations that get more and more complex, and every third variation is a canon. So you have he basically, if you know what to listen for, it really blows your mind of like, whoa, he's repeating the part from the end but backwards, so you hear the same piece going towards and then it's like a retrograde canon a third apart.
I can't fucking handle this, dude.
It's some serious mindfuckery going on. Like, I don't know how. I don't think it helped Goldberg sleep at all if you knew what to do.
When you were saying it gets more intense and complex, I was like, I would want it to wind down. Right?
It's not melatonin of the music, dude.
No. Imagine yourself like you're in the third act of whatever, and you're just like, All right, dude. This is supposed to be calming me down right now, but
I'm supposed to be asleep, but Fricka is about to
But
move
right
into
now, for
Botox
some
release.
reason, I'm battling in a fucking war in my head right now.
Yeah, there's no sheep jumping over any kind of fences. It's like fucking.
I'm supposed to be
more
sleeping,
obscure.
but this cat won't stop ripping on the harpsichord.
That's crazy. I didn't know actually that there was any like still like organs that were still around that Bach played on.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, there are organs that
Crazy.
people like more recent people like Messiaen is a really important figure in the French organ tradition, but also in kind of modern atonal, like kind of modern post-tonal music. But there are organs that like all these really famous people have played, and for various reasons. Like you go back to French Baroque music, there's really important composers there, like Couperin, guys that worked for Louis XIV that they played. And organs are actually one of the main ways that we know about tuning systems other than written records, because you can go back and look at an organ that's fallen in disrepair and it's way out of tune, but you can kind of retrospectively analyze how they cut the pipes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know like how they,
what is that? Reverse engineer it.
Exactly. And there are organs that, like the oldest organ in the world's from 1402, and it's, it's held up fine. Turns out that they use really soft metals, mostly lead back then. So they say that, they say like a classical guitar ages and has this kind of, but for organs, there's about a 500-year mark where the lead kind of fuses into that tone a little bit. It's so crazy. Yeah,
that's way cooler than guitar, dude. You don't just like show up to like I'm gonna show up to this like church and like this is the Jimi Hendrix guitar. Play this one real quick. And
I will say, it's like it does allow you to make fun of pianists when they complain about all the pianos being different. Because if I'm booking a tour, I have to book 2-3 days in advance to not just get used to that organ but register it. So all these things over here, all these knobs are different, like orchestral instruments. And then these buttons down here tell me what to press. Like I program different sounds like patches kind of on a synthesizer into those. And I'll easily have hundreds of those in one piece on a concert that's like 5 pieces.
How do you memorize?
This is so fucking cool, dude, because this is the aspect of your episode that we didn't get. You sitting at an organ, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah, but how do you memorize all that for a gig or something like that with all those? Because obviously there's not a
you do it over 100 times, like Peter said, dude. You do it.
Well, you kind of exactly. I will say it's kind of like the first time you register a piece on an organ, like you orchestrate it on that organ, it takes forever and ever and ever. But then as you like mature with that piece, you kind of realize shortcuts you can take and still get the same effect. So stuff I'll take out to Europe on a tour is stuff that I've played for a few years that I know, like, oh yeah, there's a diminuendo here, but I don't have to like make 10 different steps to get down to like mezzo piano. I can kind of just go there and use a little trick. And but it's a huge problem with organ, dude. And it's a big reason why for the last 200 years people have been trying to make touring organs that you can bring along for the show. So it might actually be easier to truck around an 18-wheeler with an organ on it, spend 4 hours setting it up, than it would be to spend 20 hours practicing on the organ there. But that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, I don't know what Anthony says. If Anthony with Jinko's coming back, if that was going to actually be true, what if organs just like they're like, dude, if organs were like arena selling, dude. Like it was like, dude, it's like this huge like rapper and this organ guy, dude.
That would be
this organ guy is like
cool.
Headlining. Yeah,
and I always say this, but like
Pizza and Pipes comes back, dude.
Exactly.
You don't remember that place, guys? Pizza and Pipes, dude.
It was in Arizona, right?
There's also one in California for a little bit, or something similar to it,
right.
where the whole restaurant was just surrounded by organ, like brass, like the walls were brass, dude, and music was playing on. Probably, I don't know if the dude was actually playing it or if it was like automatic, but either way, it was organ music just blaring through this place.
That's what they're missing in church is pizza.
Yeah,
there we go.
Totally, dude.
So what's your
instead of hitting the holy water, they hand you a slice, dude.
They're like, pepperoni on this one. Yeah, you've sinned.
Yeah.
So Ian's asking, like,
drop a little of the holy water on the pizza.
Thomas, what's your job? Sounds like you get paid to play organ around the globe. That's what he said.
That's so funny. Like, dude, what do you do? So I make about half my income working at this church up in Santa Barbara. So I pull through on Thursday nights to play with the choir, and on Sunday mornings I play about 10 minutes before the service, and then during this, whatever I want. Probably not the craziest stuff. I don't whip out raining blood for the service.
But do you mess around though? Just like there's people there that they give you kind of like a base level, like what you need to play. You're like, I'm gonna go over here with this riff, and then go over here. Do you
I don't
like
really. I improvise a little bit, but in classical music, most of what you do is you play. I mean, my girlfriend's a pop musician. You end up playing covers a lot of the time, I guess. But it's like, we're covering Brahms, or and I'm just so addicted to playing that music because I just think it's so brilliant. So honestly, I play mostly stuff other people write, but I do write my own stuff and all that, and I try to make sure to do that because classical music is so devoid of kind of that creative aspect that I really try to bring that in there. But yes, I play the hymns and I play a little thing at the end, something fancy, and people go home.
I don't want
the rest of the time. Go ahead.
Sorry, Thomas. I don't want to get you fired, but I gotta ask you: do you ever sneak like a Dimmu intro to Puritanical?
You know it. I played like for communion at one time. I had not here because I like these people, but I had the intro to Mr. Crowley, super quiet with some Baroque ornaments.
Yes, dude. That's so cool.
Totally. But also, like, a lot of this, the whole idea of the organ is that you can hire one person to play an orchestra's worth of music or like a choir's worth of music in the Middle Ages. And so I feel like playing death metal songs on the organ is super sick because, like, I'm working on stab wound necrophages. And you can get the two guitars in your hands and the bass tapping in the pedals, and it actually it makes us sick. Or like CAFO, Animals as Leaders, I'm working on right now. Yeah. It ends up you have a lot of layers in that music that you can totally. And I think it's also for me proof that like that music is really brilliant because it holds up when you take the blast beats and the gutturals and the distortion out. And it holds up as beautiful music. I like death songs and stuff hold up beautifully on the organ.
It would be really fucking cool to hear a Thomas Mellan cover album where you take you get serious with it and you really pick it apart and you do organ covers of not just death metal music, but just it'd be cool to see it like a death metal specific release or whatever. But just how your interpretation on the organ would be for various songs,
Yeah, I really want to do Tarkus, Emerson, Lake and Palmer on the organ. I feel like there's so much shit that would work. Like, I could just sit here all night, be like, so I was thinking of doing this song.
If you were to do one of those albums, where would it be? Like, what building that you've played in, and what organ would you want to do an album's worth of material on?
There's an organ in Atlantic City that's technically the biggest organ in the world, and not all of it's functioning. They're working on it. There's volunteers that there's 25 hours, give or take, volunteers that are just full time there, just restoring it. But that organ has basically everything you'd want and more. But I mean, it worked fine right here. This is a good instrument. I mean, it's so hard to say. A lot of instruments that you go to France and Germany, you play a Baroque organ, you can't really play a whole lot of stuff that was written 50 years after that organ was built sometimes because a lot of the crazier stuff would actually damage it, or the tuning system's off, or there just aren't enough keys to to get to the top of Christian Munzer's run on.
How could it damage it? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so a lot of instruments before electricity were they're called tracker actions. So there's actually a physical piece of basically balsa wood going up from each key to each pipe. And so it's kind of before the telephone exchange, the pipe organ was by a very long shot the most technically advanced thing people made. So which is why it was kind of
I'm getting a headache, dude. I'm getting a fucking headache right now. This is just all such good stuff, dude.
You can get me talking about this forever, so shut me up.
But keep
Just
going.
like-
No, this is
I'm gonna
so
try and
cool.
react in my
do
head,
one of
dude.
these, like, you know.
No,
Anthony,
literally, I
Anthony.
just need to keep my reactions in my head, dude. Keep going, please.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's like the priority. If you think about priorities, though, like the most technical thing that they had at that time was like a organ to like celebrate God, I think.
Oh
right?
yeah.
And
Well,
yeah,
now
and
I
to
get like,
entertain
think
it,
about
dude.
it, like what are these like oligarchs and shit doing, for better or for worse? But like their new thing now to showcase their wealth is like AI or like a spaceship or like, you know,
totally.
back then if you were some duke of some German city state, what you would show off to people visiting is your freaking pipe organ in your church.
So check out these
Totally.
pipes, dog.
Whip
Yeah.
out your pipes, dude. Just fucking whip
We're
them out.
making
And
the
like-
biggest
and
pipe
you'd have
organ
the
anyone's
best-
ever seen.
You have the best pipe organ, you have the best organist, and like
Yeah.
these guys would play, like Louis Marchand, this French organist, would play to easily crowds of well over 5,000. I mean, when Frescobaldi would play St. Peter's in Rome, they would fill it up 3 times in a row. He'd play the same show 3 times in a row, and that's a 20,000 capacity
Oh,
building.
wild.
And think about like 60,000 people, like adjust that for like the size of the population for like,
Yeah.
you know, the
Think about all the
1590s.
T-shirts he was selling, dude. It's crazy.
Dude, Frescobaldi merch, man. He's like the photo shoots, like
Just sell merch. We should
There's a
just sell
merch
merch to
table.
Fresco.
Casey low key coming with the fucking murderer, dude. That was a killer. Oh. God damn, dude. He
Dude, they
would've
were
made a
selling,
fucking killing with 20,000.
I was at the
people, dude.
Frescobaldi show at 93, bro. 1593.
Yeah, dude.
That shirt has
Back,
been
it's like-
washed so many times.
Oh,
I think because this
fuck.
whole this like subscription culture, they're gonna be like in the future that like bands are gonna sell shirts that are just gonna dissolve and just like you have to get another one. You have to like
Oh,
you have
yeah.
to,
If you
it's
don't
like,
renew your
oh,
subscription, it's
dude.
just a black shirt on the 1st of the next month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Casey.
the logo goes away.
Oh, I'm crying right now, Casey. That was
Oh my
fucking
God.
great, dude.
Oh man.
Like no, it tells you
What?
that you didn't pay on the shirts. Like I didn't pay.
Oh,
I couldn't afford. I
It starts
couldn't afford
getting
the
ads.
Oh my God. Unfortunately,
that's
it's probably
brain
coming, but
damage.
hopefully not.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Richard,
my God.
what's like? I don't know your music. I'm meeting you here for the first time. What's something I should look up, and maybe some listeners might benefit from this too? I feel like you're
Yeah,
pretty famous,
dude.
but like, what should I look up? Like on my way home.
I think the one maybe Sonata de Griot is like the one that seems like it resonates with people the most. The song "Saving a Life" is the one that's like probably the most popular on there.
Hell yeah.
But I'd say that's also cool because it's like it kind of. I feel like Peter. A lot of the stuff I was jamming with Peter, like the classical. When we were playing together,
Thanks, awesome.
like we'd always. I
A
wouldn't play electric
million monthly
guitar.
listeners? You have a million monthly listeners?
How did
This
yeah.
reminds me of like hanging out with the Slipknot guys. I'm like,
and we
"You're
used
in
to
fucking
crash.
Slipknot, dude.
We used to
Okay,
crash
hold on, I was
at his house, and so you were living in Seattle at the time, right?
Yeah.
Was it Seattle?
Yeah.
That's
On
crazy,
the
man. Good for
bloodletting
you, man.
tour.
Good for you. And Richard's like one of the most like kind-hearted people too. So it's like, of course, he deserves like all. He's the sweetest guy in the world, and he's got a million monthly listeners. Like, please
That's
listen.
so
to
I've
him.
cool. That's
always
inspiring, man.
seen Richard as you know, a
Because he
conduit.
doesn't
He's
play
always
death
been.
metal.
He's always
I mean,
been creative.
you can
is
not play
always
death metal and
making
not
stuff.
get a million a month.
I'm just kidding.
No, it doesn't matter. dude.
We mixed. I worked with you guys on that album.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Synesthesia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always just been into like audio, and it's funny because I've always made my music, but I never like. I just kind of always have just kept on doing it and releasing it like on Bandcamp, and I sort of accepted that it's not like viable to do music as like for a living, and then like I just started going like, oh, it's like seeing a little bit more like, you know, increase, like people are listening more and more, until I was like, damn, like what the heck. But I think what I found is that there's just trends, you know, like I think what you're into starts, the thing you're always into sort of like becomes popular, and that's that's a lucky moment,
Right.
Because it's like instrumental music too, and but that's something that I've always been interested in. And then so I'm like, it's great right now. I'm sure though, like it's just gonna like it's funny. I've been looking at like artists that I used to listen to like 15 years ago, and you see like they're not doing much now, and you're like, what do people end up doing? Like
right.
I was just thinking about that. Like, what do you do when you're like, you have like a music career and then all of a sudden you don't? You're like, well, I'm sure people still make music, but it's it's like
maybe releasing it isn't in there. Yeah.
It's so interesting because with classical music, you get to look at people's careers for the last few hundred years. And so you definitely get to see those cycles happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get to see within these guys' lifetimes, like their music go in and out of popularity.
Totally.
And how they each dealt with it, like in their personal letters, but also in like the stylistic evolution of all their musics. And it's kind of comforting in a way, because I feel like with music that isn't that old, you don't get that tangible proof that like stuff that comes and goes, and it's just a normal part of evolution.
I heard that like Haydn's music was crushing when Bach's was like not crushing.
Oh
like,
yeah,
right. Like I heard Bach like wasn't very like his son's music was more popular than his
son's. If you said you played stuff by Bach, no one thought you would ever be saying the Bach that we refer to now. Yeah, you were talking about his sons.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's so funny because you look at Bach now and you play these masterpieces that are from the 1740s, but they're forms and structures like preludes and fugues. People didn't really write those after the 1690s. It'd be like coming out with a full-on disco album now. And you're like, that's cool, man, but like,
that's crazy.
Or like a swinging rock and roll album.
What did his son's music sound like? Like, what was the difference?
To us, it sounds a lot more like Haydn. It's like a very melodic, very very cleanly structured, and a little bit a little bit less.
Busy and stuff.
Yeah, a little less busy in some ways, a little less dense in a way. I mean, it's incredible music. It's just very different. Yeah.
What do you think about the switched on Bach, like Wendy Carlos stuff?
Oh, it's so sick. I think the fact that Bach's music is so purely pitch and rhythm, and he kind of represents kind of an apex in that, in a way where like you can play it on really anything and it sounds incredible. And the fact that Bach was the guy that really developed keyboard instruments. Bach was the guy that tried out the first pianos and was like, dude, this is great. I can't believe you guys can make this. Make me more. Make me tons of different models. He tried all kinds of keyboard things. Bach in his day was known more as an organ technician than as a composer.
No way.
And so he was a total nerd. He was a big part of the development of the organ as we know it in that part of Germany. And so the fact that synthesizers come out in the 60s and Wendy Carlos decides to develop synthesizers with Bach is just the coolest example of like shoulders of giants imaginable.
Yeah.
God, that's awesome.
It's metal as shit.
I'm exhausted in such a good way right now, dude. Like I'm getting flooded with such cool information right now.
The next coolest thing is the modulation of all that shit of the old analog synths, and like also Wendy Carlos and doing like the Clockwork Orange soundtrack and like all the crazy. Like
I've gotten so big on synths now. I got like a D50 at home. I got all these kind of working on. It's so cool to see. I'm sorry I cut you off. I do that.
You guys don't? No, dude, it's all good. Do you guys like the like Steve Moore zombie stuff, like Survive, like the guys that did all the the Stranger Things stuff and like all that?
Oh yeah,
I like that, like the droning,
I try my hand at making stuff like that these days. It's really fun.
What up,
David in the
chat? You got a shout out earlier, dude. You weren't here for it though, but we love you, dude.
Oh yeah.
The conversation got to jungle, and of course your name would come up.
Hell yeah.
Or maybe you came up and then Jungle followed after. Either way, we love you, dude.
What's up, David?
Yeah, dude. Richard was a surprise too, dude.
that was awesome. It was like comforting.
Dude, I'm so happy I jumped in. I was thinking I've been going to bed like at 8:30 because of my daughter waking up all early, and I was like, it's past my bedtime, Casey. And then I was like, I gotta jump in there.
Well, thanks for hanging out, dude. If you need to take off, dude, I totally get it, dude.
All right, yeah, I'll jump off. It was really nice.
I know you did hang on for a lot longer after you were already saying
So
you were
great to meet
bouncing,
you.
but-
Yeah, dude, I'm like jazzed on pipe organs. I like want to go.
We just sent Richard on another rabbit hole, dude.
Yeah, no,
Next time he's on, dude, that whole wall behind him is gonna be fucking brass. Just
The dumpster behind Richard's place is all filled with guitars. Like... So nice. I'll look forward to listening to a bunch of your music. That'll be awesome.
Awesome, man. Thanks. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Good
All right,
seeing
Richard.
y'all.
Love you, dude.
Love you guys too. Bye.
Good stuff.
Rock on.
Peace.
And
Oh
then
my
there were
God.
4 guys.
It's this
And then
hang
there were
again.
4. It's this hang again, dude.
No, I missed the
like-
last one. I missed the last one. I was like, I came home from work late, and I threw on the podcast while I was in my living room, and I'm like, I don't want to interrupt this. This is great.
Well, there was a Chiefs
I
game,
watched
too.
it. It was a Chiefs game. That's probably
Yeah.
that'll do it. That'll do it every time.
Which unfortunately there are still Chiefs game left to play.
I know.
I know.
I know.
Everybody hates
the,
the Chiefs.
the refs shepherd us into the Super Bowl, and then
I know.
Yeah.
no, it's not a thing though. But I like to thank the refs in front of people and be like, "Thank you, refs," and people go, "Well, that's why you guys."
Bullshit.
Yes,
Yeah.
Bills. Well, or
No,
Eagles, but anyways,
Bills are gonna. Bills
Those
are
are the
probably gonna
perfect
be.
team. It's gonna be It's gonna be
Yeah.
wild.
it's gonna be
Bills are
satisfying.
gonna, Bills are gonna do it. But I mean, satisfying after what? We just dominated for like a decade. Okay. Anyways, so Oregon.
Hey guys, I'm gonna peace out too because I am getting over surgery. So
All right, dude.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Let's
I hear you,
just wrap
dude.
this up. I have to
Yeah.
do some
All right.
stuff tonight.
All right,
Great.
cool, dude. Thomas,
I
dude.
appreciate you guys.
I
Yeah.
really appreciate you, dude. You always come with information that I didn't realize that I wanted to add to my brain, and
That's awesome.
but I want to absorb everything. My brain hurts in such a good way. I'm not joking, dude. I got a headache in this episode with how fascinated I was with so many different things that you were saying tonight, dude. And that's
Oh, you guys are the best.
dude.
Hey Thomas, is there
Thomas,
like a
dude.
more of a visual learner? Is there like a cool Bach documentary or something to watch or to listen to?
Let me
I'm more of a-
think. There's a good, like, the Netherlands Bach Society on YouTube is this channel, and they basically have the complete works of Bach up, played by really
Okay.
great people with cool looking
Okay.
videos. Which
Yeah.
that's like hundreds of hours of music. So that's a good start. Documentaries. If I think of something, I'll DM you. It's a little
Okay.
hard with.
Awesome.
It's a really academic field, so having like movies done about it's a little. It's not, it's not that common, unfortunately. But if I think of something, I'll let you know.
Awesome. That's,
Dude. So cool, dude.
Hell yeah! Thank you guys so much. This was Casey. Great idea to have Peter up here and stuff. That was
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
dude.
That
Peter was
he
really good,
Very
dude.
cool.
And there's Peter in his younger days.
Wait, pop that one
Peter in his
back up,
younger
dude.
days.
Pop that one
It's
back
Peter.
up. Check us out, dude.
Thomas
What are you
says
talking
Peter in
about?
his younger days.
I know what you're
dude.
talking about.
Oh, okay. It's
That Severed
forever
Savior
good
recording
time.
the third album. Yeah.
And that's my soon-to-be wife. After
Yeah,
that,
you're
looking
zero
at me
kids
like,
right there. You guys had 0 kids. and
Zero
now you have like
kids.
19.
That's incredible.
Dude, I mean, I needed this, guys. I missed it last week. I know I got to get used to these every other week things, but I'll get used to them. And Thomas, again, dude, you're always. We gotta have like a 4-time-a-year Thomas thing where he just keeps schooling us on the history of. No, dude. Yeah,
I mean, I'm always down.
you have enough information to fill that up, dude. And
That's
I
cool.
just
Your
want to sit back and
scholastic
listen
journey.
to all of
Yeah,
it.
your scholastic journey is very impressive. When I
Oh,
start
thanks,
listening to the
yeah.
stories about like what we think about certain artists or like composers back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, did you know Bach was like, Jesus Christ?
As you said,
But,
Bach, that was perfect timing. Yeah.
I know. But no, it's very cool. I love it. It's very interesting, and I'm super glad you came on and hung out, dude.
Same.
Yes.
I love chatting with you guys. Love the pod. Obviously, you guys, I said it last time, but you guys have gotten me into so much cool music and kind of the culture of death metal and all that. And in addition to like Suffo, Spawn, all these like core basic artists.
And again, you're giving it back to us to make us pay attention to, the history of the shit, and I learned so much more shit. I want to keep learning, dude. I'm now I'm just like Richard. I'm going down the pipe organ route, dude.
And that's your face halfway down that route.
Yeah. Just fucking eyes open, like, give me more.
Amazing. Well, you guys have a fantastic night. Thank you so much for having me on with Peter and with Richard.
Awesome,
that was
man.
so sick. So cool.
Dude, most definitely, dude.
And take care, you guys.
Yeah, dude. All the good, cool stuff. Battleforge Coffee, Generator Rehearsal Studios, Peter Pupping, Thomas Mellan, fucking Richard Hooten, Cali Death Podcast.
You're darn tootin'.
I'll sneak in a quick plug. On March 26th, I'm playing a show in downtown LA at Thayer Hall. It's at the Colburn School. The info is on this website called pianospheres.com. It's the name of the series. And Colin Marston from Gorguts, / everything that we all like, wrote me a piece for piano and synthesizers, and I'm playing a thing of mine that's got like electronics and synths and kind of crazy stuff, and I'm playing this kind of atonal stuff. So that's
why didn't you say at the beginning?
I know. I was actually like, what the fuck, dude?
Hold on a second.
I know. Well, I mean, this is the thing.
You just reignite Anthony. We have like another hour now because you said
we actually have. No,
Casey's like, fuck you guys.
The time in between podcasts is making the plug section a little more loose, and we are forgetting things. Like there was another thing I wanted to plug at the top for a listener. Let me just do it real quick. I'm sorry, Anthony, I didn't put it at the top, but I want to put it at the bottom now. Anthony Wendelboe, aka Tapes. He put out a 4-episode cartoon on YouTube called Ordinary People. I want you guys to go check out Ordinary People. It stars his dog as the president of the United States, and he uses various toys, and there's villains. It's this whole crazy little 6-minute episodes, 4 episodes, and you're left wanting more at the end. You're like, there's plot lines that definitely he could sew up, and I want him to keep going, and I want you guys to go check it out too. So Ordinary People on YouTube. I think you could just find it by searching that, but he has 4 episodes. And dude, Sam Talent, Brian Holtzman, all these Kill Tony affiliate like comedians are doing the voices of characters, and it's actually G-rated. Like you could watch it with your kids if you guys have kids. So dude, go check it out. Ordinary People on YouTube. I wanted to do it up top, but things get a little, everybody wants to talk and everybody's getting excited, and I forgot. So I'm sorry, dude. Anthony, aka Tapes Media. He's about to be going out on tour with some bands, shooting a tour for 6 weeks too. He's doing things. He's a listener of the show, and I just wanted to give him props. I enjoyed what he did, and I want him to do more. So check out the old school rocking the same thing. Yeah, well, that was probably a summer episode because fuck, it's cold here right now, dude. In this cement building.
Yeah, long sleeve.
I got a hoodie underneath it right now. Repping the Mersey, dude. We haven't talked about Warnleys in a while, dude. Shout out to Murray. All right, this is all stuff that I wish was at the top, but now either way, we should give we'll find out a way to put a story up for Anthony too, because I think it's really cool, guys. That's it takes me back to like the Adult Swim era. The old Robot Chicken type stuff that we used to watch when we were fucking teenagers.
Start from the top.
Thomas, you're young. You're young. How old are you, Thomas?
I turned 30 2 days ago.
Okay, so
happy
maybe
birthday. Happy mother freaking birthday.
Happy 3 decades, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe you caught the end of Robot Chicken. I don't know. Either
Robot Chicken? No, I was in a basement listening to Beethoven. It sucked.
He's like, dude, you were getting stoned watching people play with toys while I was fucking learning the vast history of music.
Classical music.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good picture right there.
And that's why I'm just that's why I'm just an interviewer and you're the guy.
I was snack.
Yeah. Anthony, see, you said all these stuff, and Anthony, I told you it was another hour.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry. I talked too much. I love you
Oh,
guys.
he left. I thought it'd be funny if he didn't leave. Oh, he's back. Okay,
he's back.
All right, love you guys.
Someone asked Casey.
Love you guys.
All right, I won't say anymore. Love you guys. Love everything about this. I can't wait for 2 more weeks. All right.
What do you think about Tim and Eric?